All right, everybody, welcome in to episode 51 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, the only podcast to talk about both American and Brazilian sports. As always, I'm Nicholas Hill, live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, of the United States, wounded from my weekend trip to Columbia, South Carolina, but I'm alive. The sun still rises every day, so I think we'll be good and well. Joining me, as always, from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, is Gustavo Tomazeli, and our good friend Jason Wyrick is also here with us today. Guys, how are we doing here? We are now in the World Cup
I,
and ready to go.
I, I'll be honest though. I am more pumped than I was expecting for a World Cup. Before the World Cup started, I was like, I will enjoy it. But now I'm ready to talk about World Cup, especially the last game of the day, because I have some strong opinions about it, and I'm ready to talk about World Cups because I know it's in a tough spot in terms of American calendar sports here because it's right in the middle of college football or NFL season. But World Cup is like there's nothing to top that. That's the biggest sporting event in the world. I'm sorry, and I'm ready to talk about it.
Jason, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. I'm having a really good day. I'm blessed to be with you guys on the podcast. Again, thank you for having me. I always love coming to do this, and I'm excited to argue with Gus a little bit over one particular thing, and I'm not so happy to share in the pain of another. But I'm sure we're going to get to it all.
All right, so let's get not wasting time. Let's get right into it. Of course, as we said, the World Cup began yesterday in Qatar. A very controversial World Cup. And if y'all want to ever talk about, you don't want to talk about that aspect of it, we can at some point about just how this is turning into basically the Fire Fest of soccer for the people who are on the ground. But obviously, for us, we're just viewing the TV side of this. We're viewing the actual games. Um, We've only had 4 matches so far. So yesterday, the host nation Qatar kicked things off against Ecuador. They lost 2-0. This morning, you had three
I,
games. Go ahead.
I and since you mentioned the opening game, I'm not surprised. I feel like Ecuador should have beat even more. Qatar team looked like a pickup team. Like it's like the Qatar like say, hey, can you play? Hey, can you do it? Hey, and like Qatar is literally Bishop Sycamore of countries playing a World Cup. It's like a pickup team. It's like they have a lot of players that were like naturalized, that they're even born there. Like Qatar is literally Bishop Sycamore of nations playing a World Cup. That's the best comparison I can make.
I was reading they were begging people to join their team. They were trying to
No, no,
pay one.
they were begging people to be fans. They were paying people $700 to go to the game and cheer for them. If they gave me that amount of money too, I would be the biggest fan ever. I would have, scream as loud as I could. I would have been the biggest fan. Like, being
I'm
a
down
World
on
Cup game is a dream.
because in Qatar, you know, the hotel, the quote unquote hotel rooms they've built don't even have AC. And then, for years they're like, oh, okay, we're going to allow beer at the stadium, even though we don't have beer in our society because we're a repressive, theocratic government. And now the day before, it's like, nope, no beer for you in the stadium. Um, and it's
I
just,
mean, was that not what everybody was expecting, though? I feel like everybody has been expecting that since literally 2010 when this was awarded to Qatar. We knew this
Eh,
was coming. Literally everyone knew this was coming except maybe Sepp Blatter. He might have been a little bit naive. Maybe.
and the
Maybe
country that's
him.
been the most mad about this is Brazil. Brazil had to change their law that they had enacted back in the early 2000s to protect fans in the stadium, as they deemed that that alcohol was not the right thing to do in stadiums. And FIFA came in and was like, you have to put beer back in stadiums, even though
And,
Brazil didn't want to.
and to that point, Nick, and you mentioned a great point. In Brazil in 2014, there was a big controversy. Whatever, alcohol will be allowed to stay inside the stadium because Brazil had a law passed in 2003 that alcohol was not allowed to be sold in the stadium. But I remember vividly there was a FIFA director named Jeremy Valk who came to Brazil multiple times during the span of 2011 to 2013, and he was vividly say there will be alcohol sales in stadiums in Brazil. And then there was a law passed for the World Cup time between June and July that allowed the say alcohol sales in stadiums, and then right after that, alcohol sales were banned again in the stadiums. Brazil just did not have the like the balls to kind of be stand up like, hey FIFA, those are our law. But the difference is Qatar, they were like, those are religion. We don't like Qatar were like, what are you gonna do, FIFA? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna, host the World Cup in other part? No, you're not gonna do that. FIFA was Qatar's bitch.
And see, this is why you cannot host an international sporting event in a theocratic government. You just can't, because the theocrat. And here's the thing: the theocratic government has every right to run the country the way they want to run it. I mean, I'm not saying that Qatar doesn't have the right to exist, but when choosing a country to host an international event that has to be welcoming to all different types of people, all different types of religions, there's a certain list of countries that can do that well, and there's some countries that just can't. And Qatar is just not. I'm not saying Qatar shouldn't exist. What I am saying is they shouldn't be hosting an event like this. That because of their strict religion, they're not going to be able to accommodate everyone. And
right,
I can only imagine if like Israel had made this, like, for example, like how would they be getting treated at this event?
Right. And my thing is, I mean, it's obvious that FIFA sold the World Cup to Qatar. That's known at this point. But the fact that some people like Gianni Infantino were surprised that this happened, I call BS. They had to do what?
It's a lot BS. He was already like a UEFA top official when all of this were happening. He was directly involved with all that. I mean, he was a top UEFA official, and he didn't know what was happening behind the scenes at FIFA when Qatar was awarded a host nation. Give me a break.
Did y'all see the quote from like Saturday where he was like, "Today I feel Qatari. Today I feel Arab. Today I feel African. Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled. Today I feel a migrant worker." What are you talking about?
He was talking a lot and nothing at the same time. He was just doing a PR because that's what he knows what to do.
I mean, you were the one that sold a World Cup to a country that used slaves to build these stadiums. I mean, that's on you, buddy.
Yeah, but they're not ready for that conversation yet.
Oh, hell no. It's like, hey, and they don't care about the fans there. The fans in the stadium in today's FIFA environment is the least of their priorities. They care about the televised product because that's where they make their money. That's where they get the billions of dollars of media rights that's purchased throughout the world. Like, the World Cup is a televised event, not an experience. That's why you brought up comparisons like Fire Festival. For the people who went to Qatar, maybe it's there, but the FIFA don't care because they care about the billions of fans who turn their TV on to watch the event.
Yeah, I 100% agree, Gus. I everything you said, yes.
And it's like, I had a more conundrum because, like, I was wondering if I even really should even watch it, in terms of, like, because I do feel dirty to an extent for watching this because of the backdrop of it. Because I'll admit, last year for the Winter Olympics, with it being in China, and obviously all the stuff that their government was doing, especially to the Uyghurs, I honestly skipped the vast majority of that competition because I didn't want to support that government. I really don't want to support this government either.
I get your point, but I feel like I would not deprive my soccer love, and especially the event that we wait every 4 years, because of FIFA's decisions. Like, I can criticize them, and we have the platform to do so, but I feel like I won't deprive my love for soccer because of FIFA's choice, because then I won't be watching soccer ever. Because if I, only watch events that are not compromised politically or ethically, then I won't be able to watch probably, a lot of sporting events, not only soccer.
That's exactly how I feel, Gus, because, yeah, at the same time, I don't support FIFA selling this World Cup to Qatar, and I don't support the fact that this was built by, slave labor. Me not watching is not going to undo the fact that they built this with slave labor. Protesting is one thing, and not supporting them is one thing, but you're not gonna make a dent in their profits by not watching, unless everybody stops watching. You're gonna make a dent otherwise by protesting and pressuring FIFA to make amends for this situation. You have to do that in other ways. Just tuning out of the World Cup is not going to do it. It's not going to undo what's already been done. The only thing you can do now is try to prevent it from happening again, because the mistakes that have been made have already been made.
And the people who could do the pressures, like Budweiser's president, Visa's president, those can call the shots because those are the sponsors. Because FIFA answers
absolutely.
They answer to the people who gave the money. So I guess Qatar money stops what Budweiser money or Visa money or other sponsors' money.
And Budweiser, they're probably going to end up suing over this whole situation because now their beer isn't being sold in the stadium.
Right. And I expect Qatar's government to cut them a check as kind of hush money, as it were. But you better believe that the title sponsors of the World Cup are going to be in FIFA's ear being like, you can't pull this crap again. You can't. You just can't. Because this looks bad on us. And if you don't have our dollars, good luck. Because like Gus said, the vast majority of the revenue from the World Cup are from TV deals and advertising money. And if you cut out the big advertisers, you're in trouble. Because you have a whole infrastructure that you have to pay for, and you don't get it without advertising money. That's a problem. And I think Gus is exactly right. The leadership of these sponsor companies and corporations are the ones that actually have the pull here. Me not watching and choosing to not support the World Cup being in Qatar by not watching, that's not going to do anything. But these title sponsors, they'll be able to make a difference. And I expect that they very well will pretty soon.
And I feel like Budweiser won't only tolerate that because next World Cup is in North America, especially United States. So they definitely still want to be the sponsor because it's like, kind of FIFA has Budweiser on this finger, because if Budweiser ended up suing, FIFA would like, okay, fine, you can sue. Then we'll find another beer to sponsor us. And then do you think Budweiser want to miss 2026 World Cup? Of course, they'll make a deal. They'll find a way. Maybe they'll, pay less in 2026. I don't know the arrangement, but Budweiser doesn't want to make FIFA mad because of next World Cup in 2026, where we'll be in Budweiser's land.
Exactly, and there won't be. Very likely, there won't be the same ethical nor political concerns because, it's the United States of America, unless something just goes off the rails. But
well, we know better than to assume that is not going to happen, but
exactly.
I tend to agree it's pretty unlikely.
I mean, we have an election between now and then, and who knows what could happen. But
if U.S. won't host the World Cup, what country? I mean, U.S. has the best sports infrastructure in the world, the best stadiums, the best organization. I mean, if Qatar can host a World Cup with other political troubles, United States can't. I mean, it will be unreal. I mean,
we already have all the stadiums. Like, we already have the stadiums, and
and not built with slave labor, might I add.
That's very correct. It's definitely the backdrop of this is an absolute mess, and I'm sure there's going to be documentaries and just all kinds of stuff made about how this whole situation has unraveled. I'm very interested to see exactly.
There's actually already one on Netflix about how they sold it to Qatar.
Yeah.
I remember vividly there was a British journalist named Andrew Jennings. He went to Brazil, I remember vividly, 2011, and he was already denouncing this. He was already giving the spotlight of how corrupt FIFA was and how it should have been England, not Qatar, awarded the 2022 World Cup. He was already kind of, showing how dirty FIFA was. And especially remember how Brazil took it seriously because Brazil was going to host the World Cup when all of his accusations came forward. But also a lot of people putting pressure on the players. Oh, why the players protest? Like, they're there to live a dream. What kid what don't want to play the World Cup? Like 100% of those players want to be there. They live for it. So the last thing on their minds right now, to be honest, is to think political protest. They want to focus to do the best from their countries. They're representing their land.
Yeah. As I said, we'll definitely see what transpires from here moving forward. But moving on to the actual games themselves. So we've talked about the Ecuador, Qatar. Then this morning you had England and Iran, and England just absolutely broke through Iran's attempt to park the bus and won 6-2.
And credit to credit to Southgate. I was impressed of how England did not play the England way, which was set pieces and crosses to the striker. No, like if you saw how Harry Kane played today, he was not as much as a striker. He was more like a offense midfielder, creating plays. Of course, set pieces is still a big part of English football, but it's not the only thing they do. Like in the past, England football was like crossing their area, set pieces to like Peter Crouch and other strikers. But I feel like England evolved. I don't know if they have the like if they're gonna make all the way and finally bring football home. That's what their fans chant. We're coming home. We're coming home. I think if they lose this World Cup, they have to they have to bury this chant because it's not giving any luck.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, then again, they're going to play much tougher teams than Iran moving forward, but obviously it's a very good start for England. And then second game today, you had the Netherlands defeating Senegal 2-0, and a solid start for the Dutch. Any thoughts on that game?
I was impressed. Senegal play without their best player, Sadio Mane. When you don't play with that kind of a player that has a lot of ability, who's doing really well at Liverpool, you tend to be weaker. But they play head to head, But at the end, the goalkeeper made a bad decision, and and even Netherlands scored a goal with their back, so they got lucky. But in the end, Senegal tried, to play head to head, but they got unlucky. That's all I can say. They got unlucky.
I think they were thoroughly outclassed for probably at least half of that football match. Senegal is a very good, very strong team. Don't get me wrong. And with Edu Mendy in goal, he has been pretty solid, but he has not been the starter at Chelsea for the last, couple of months. He has been somebody who has taken a backseat to Kepa Arrizabalaga, and obviously that plays into things a little bit. His form has kind of dipped, and I think that showed a little bit today. Senegal is a strong team, but I want to take a moment to praise the Netherlands. The Netherlands lineup is very, very solid, especially considering at the back you have Matthijs de Ligt, Virgil van Dijk, Nathan Ake, Denzel Dumfries. You have all four of those guys playing in defense. That's a really difficult. That's a really difficult back four to go against. And then you've got Andries Noppert, who started in goal. He plays for Heerenveen, and he's just in incredible form right now. He's 29 or so years old, and he's never been somebody that's been just a complete stud. But he's playing very, very well because he's in good form, and he's got four really, really, really world-class, really strong defensive players in front of him. Of course you're going to have a little bit of confidence. And I was not surprised to see the Netherlands outclass Senegal today. And I was a little surprised it wasn't more. But, the Dutch lineup, the problem that I have is, well, where are the goals going to come from? And then Memphis Depay came on late. He is somebody that I think could manufacture some goals, but I just want to praise the Dutch defense, though. They were incredible, top of the line today. And I don't know if you guys want to get into your World Cup predictions, but I actually went through and predicted all of the groups and then did the bracket from that. I actually had the Dutch winning the World Cup when it's all said and done, going match by match. I had them as a dark horse going into it, but when I actually made my picks game by game, I think they win this World Cup. And I was very impressed today. And, England against Iran, I want to second what you said, Gus. I was impressed with Gareth Southgate. They should have had a penalty in like the second minute. Credit to their squad's resiliency, playing through that, because that was some nonsense. And they still were able to put 6 goals in the net, even besides what should have been a first goal in about the second minute.
So what do you say about the referee of England and Iran game? Because I won't be able to criticize because I'll be very biased. I'll be honest, because the referee on that game was Rafael Klaus, which is from Santa Barbara do West, which is the city nearby my city. He's the next city to mine. He's the city that we talked about that had all the legacy from the Confederacy. Like, he's from Santa Barbara, so all the Santa Barbara people were proud of him. So I don't know. I'll be biased if I'll comment the referee on the England game.
I don't think he was absolutely terrible. I think he was a little inconsistent. And I think he just missed the one at the beginning. I think the penalty was a big miss. But other than that, I don't think it was too terribly poor officiating. But obviously, it didn't come back to bite them because they ended up winning by 4 goals. But at the same time, what if that's a 1-0 game and it becomes 1-1? Then what?
Yeah.
That costs 2 points. You can't be making that mistake in a World Cup. And I don't want to be too overly critical because, like I said, I think it was pretty fair throughout, but that was a big, big miss. And I think if I'm giving him, if I'm judging him, I would just call him inconsistent.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Brazilian referees tend to be very, very inconsistent. I mean, me and Nick discussed a lot of our podcast how inconsistent and how, sometimes they can be a little, they call one thing on one game and another thing another game. So it's a great definition of Brazilian referee, inconsistent. I like that, Jason.
And speaking of inconsistent refereeing,
oh boy, here we go.
You kind of segue into, I would say it was the game of the day, right, between the United States and Wales. But it might be one of the games of the group stage, honestly. Here, I mean, these are two teams that were not in the 2018 World Cup. The U.S. was back for the first time since 14. This was Wales' first appearance since 1958. And you could just tell when you looked at the Welsh fans that were there. I mean, they were so emotional just to be back there. I mean, you can just tell how great it's. I can only imagine what it's like being Welsh and watching your neighbor in England, go to World Cup after World Cup and competing for titles. But then you're kind of just like the redhead stepchild of the UK.
And see, that's the other thing. The UK should have one national team, but they're not ready for that. And if they were forced to have one national team, there might actually be a civil war. So at the same time, like, FIFA just kind of looks the other way and lets Scotland and Wales do their own thing and Northern Ireland do their own thing. But they definitely should all be under the UK. But we're not going to take that national identity from Wales, Northern Ireland, and Scotland.
I mean, and go ahead, Nick.
Well, no, I was just going to make the point about how Spain, how for a long time Spain struggled to get an identity as a national team because you had the main part of Spain versus the central part of Spain versus the versus Catalonia, and how those two areas have such different styles of football that they could not mesh. And eventually they were able to work together to win the 2010 Cup. But I feel like that's what would happen with the UK. And I mean, obviously, a combined UK would be a contender every single time because you'd have England plus whoever comes out of Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland.
I mean, just think about 2014 World Cup or 2010 World Cup, even England plus Gareth Bale. Like, that's a big addition to an already loaded squad.
And I'll go even deeper than that, Jason. The Welsh team had Ryan Giggs and Ian Rush as well. Two of the top, strikers English football ever seen. Like Ian Rush is beloved at Liverpool in the 80s, and Ryan Giggs was a star at Manchester United in the 90s. With all the controversy off the field, and you know, and it's sad that he is not managing because it would be historical. Imagine Gareth Bale on the field and Ryan Giggs off the field represent his big moment, but he did terrible things allegedly with the domestic abuse. So, but I'll just point out that how the Welsh team had throughout the years a lot of individual talents, but they never had a good squad. They finally was able to make one, and it's not only now. In 2016 they did a really decent World Cup as well, decent Euro Cup as well back in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, it's just insane to me though that the UK is one country, but yet they're not. It's like if the US was allowed to send 50 teams to CONCACAF qualifying.
Yeah, and here's the thing though, like I get it. I understand, and I will always say that they should be, but I understand why they're not. Because for those that don't know, international sport, specifically with soccer, football, started with the countries of the United Kingdom playing each other. I get it. This entire thing is based on Wales and Scotland and England all playing against each other. I get it. But I think the Olympics does it better, but they will always tell you that that's wrong. So every British person will tell you that is wrong.
And FIFA has more countries on their members than UN. Like that's insane. Like UN should have more members because they are the main global stage of all the countries. But FIFA has more members because of all this flexibility that FIFA has. Especially you mentioned the UK. Like if you try to join all the four countries into one, especially in soccer where they have all the passion. Like in the Olympics, the British would be like, okay, we can do it together. Like, but in soccer, like hell no, I have my pride. I have my country. Like
exactly. And like I said, if international football didn't begin with Scotland, England, and Wales playing against each other, we wouldn't be having this debate. But it did, so we are. And kind of segueing back to kind of just jumping back over to what you brought up, Nick, I think this was the game of the day, and I was very disappointed with the officiating in this game. I was impressed with the United States. I predicted the U.S. to lose this game, so I'll take the result, but inconsistent refereeing in this game. And then I know, Gus, you're going to argue with me a little bit. I don't think that was a penalty either, the penalty on Gareth Bale, because I don't even think that's a foul. It's a very hard challenge, but you win the ball, and you win the ball before you take out Bale. That's
that obviously that happened in the last 10 minutes of the game, and in a way I almost kind of want to go for this chronologically because early on, the U.S. they came out on absolute fire. They were dominating. Wales couldn't get anything going. They were living on the Welsh side of the field, and they obviously get the goal from that beautiful assist from Pulisic to Wayne to get the lone goal of the day for the United States. But it felt like we could have gotten more, and it almost felt like some of the inconsistent officiating kind of led to that because there were some of those early yellow cards that we got. Just those were not yellow. Like we were touching ball, we were not. I mean, the Welsh team was hitting us way harder than the Americans were, and yeah, we ended up with 2 more yellow cards.
But that's my point. That's the biggest point I'm gonna make throughout this whole analysis of the U.S. and Wales team. That I feel like that's the biggest thing that held U.S. back in terms of soccer is U.S. is too naive. I feel like they need to know how to play the game a smarter way. Know how to manage refereeing. Manage the game. Like the Wales, the Welsh, they were more malandro, like we have a term in Portuguese. They knew how to, play with the referee. Like, what?
They were methodical.
Gamesmanship.
Yeah, yeah, they know how to do gamesmanship. That's the thing. Like in terms of action, US play way better. I was really impressed of how they put pressure in the first 15 minutes. US suffocated the Welsh. They should have been like 2-0 up the way they suffocated, but they couldn't score. But they finally scored after a beautiful collective goal. I mean, credit to Pulisic for the assist and Tim Weah for the the goal. But it was a collective goal. If you the ball started on the defense and came passing, and then Pulisic got the ball, got the breakthrough. That's why he knows what to do. Get the breakthrough and get the assist. And Tim Weah had a great position on the offense to get the goal. Credit to Greg Benhart to coach and get the team to play collective. But I feel like it is the first point of being naive, and I'm gonna get through that, especially on the Welsh goal.
Yeah, you're not going to get very much credit to Greg Berhalter from me. I think he's been an abysmal leader of the United States national team, and I have been very heavily critical of him, and for good reason. I can only imagine if we still had Jurgen Klinsmann right now, how this game would have gone. Because I think Jurgen Klinsmann, with this much talent, this team, could compete. They probably wouldn't win, but they could at least compete in the knockout stage. I don't see this team even making the knockout stage with Greg Berhalter. And maybe I'm just being overly harsh on him, but I don't see it. And I think a lot of what you were saying just a moment ago, Gus, about not being able to manage the game and manage gamesmanship as well, I think that falls back on Greg Berhalter's not that good of a manager. He's not a very good tactician, and I'm not sure that he has overseen this national team and all of the federation stuff. I don't think he's overseen it to a very high degree either.
Yeah, because my thing about it, and obviously I'm not, as I said last week, I'm much more of a casual soccer watcher than you two are. But at least to me, it seemed like that because of our aggressive play style in the first half, which obviously was very fun to watch. It was awesome to see us dominate Wales that way in the first half. It seemed that we didn't have stamina left in the second half because obviously Qatar, very, very warm plays, very hot. You have to kind of, in soccer to me, it's always about a game of management. You have to manage your load so you can be there for that last 20, 30 minutes. And you could just tell that Wales had the legs towards the end of that game. And that's where they were kept on getting all those chances would set up the penalty at the end of the game.
Yes, and also speaking because of all the players that had experience. I feel like US had more the talent, Wales had more the stamina, or more like the experience in terms of playing the higher level. I think if US had a player like Gareth Bale that with all the experience, all that he's been through with Real Madrid and Tottenham, I feel like Christian Pulisic is very talented, but he's not an experienced leader like Gareth Bale. I feel like Gareth Bale is a differential, not only because of his talent, but of the experience that he's been through in soccer over the years.
I think there is somebody on the U.S. side that's comparable in terms of leadership to Gareth Bale, and it's Tim Ream. Tim Ream is not nearly the quality of player that Gareth Bale is, but he has played at a very high level, in the Premier League for Fulham for a very long time. He is the Fulham captain, and he is somebody that I think probably should have been captaining the U.S. as well. And, the players voted and they didn't choose him, and that's okay. But I tend to agree, Gus. I think that if the U.S. had somebody that had been there before kind of leading this team, because this is a team of dudes that have never been to the World Cup except Tim Ream. And it's been 8 years since Ream was there. Obviously, Gareth Bale's never been, but Gareth Bale's also played at Real Madrid and played at Spurs and the like. So he's played at the highest level in the Champions League and whatnot that Tim Ream is not. But I digress. And then to Nick's point, I don't think the U.S. had the legs, and I think it's because primarily because this team came out pressing, and you can't sustain that for very long. You have to do that tactically in spurts, or you have to make it count and score. And Gus, brought up that the U.S. should have been up, 1 or 2-0, but weren't. And that's a problem. If you are going to exert yourself that much and you are going to play that aggressively, you have to make that count. And the U.S. just didn't, and it ended up paying for it. Now, again, I don't think that the U.S. really conceded a penalty, and I know Gus has disagreed with me vehemently on this issue. But if you watch the foul that led to this penalty kick, frame by frame, slow motion, he goes through Gareth Bale to get the ball, but he gets the ball before he makes contact with Bale. He sticks his leg through Gareth Bale's legs to get there, and he takes him out. It takes him out. Show the screenshot I sent, Gus, because that's the perfect shot.
Okay, I'll show. I want to show that first to make a point. Like, first of all, it was very okay. We can agree on something, Jason. Zimmerman was irresponsible to get that tackle where Gareth Bale was not even facing the goal. He was facing backwards. So
I definitely agree with that.
Let's agree on that.
It's a reckless challenge, but I do think that he got the ball first.
Yeah, that's what
reckless or not.
I mean, we're gonna disagree in a second, but we both agree that it was reckless of Zimmerman to, was reckless of him to make that tackle inside of a penalty box. And also of all the players, Gareth Bale was the most experienced one, so he knew what to do when he came pressing.
Oh, he baited the U.S. defense into that 100%.
Yeah, so he was like ready for that kind of tackle. Like he was like when he got the ball, he was waiting for the tackle. He was waiting for it, and Zimmerman was just naive to. But let me show your screenshot. To be fair, since I was just preparing, let me put it here. So that's your screenshot.
I think it's pretty clear right here that he gets the ball. And if you bring back your screenshot, you see his leg is going through Gareth Bale's legs before he takes him out. And this right here shows that his leg is extended, kicking the football away before he takes out Gareth Bale. It's a reckless challenge, but I don't think in truth, 90% of the time, 99% of the time even, that's a foul. But I think this may be the one that's not, because look at this. This is as clear cut as it gets right there, that he's got his foot on the ball.
And I want to bring another screenshot to analyze another thing. I want to also analyze what the referee saw. I want to show the screenshot of what the referee saw. So that was what the referee saw. Let me put it here. So the referee had the clear view from the penalty. Like you can see, there's no player in front of him. He was facing forward. He was facing directly the penalty. But what he saw was Gareth Bale being tackled from behind. And I know for a fact, I've been covering soccer for 10 years or more. And this kind of penalty, that's what the referees always give when a player is tackled from behind inside the penalty box. And he had a clear view.
And I 100% agree with you. I think that it should have been awarded and it should have gone to VAR. And VAR should have overturned this one. If you're going to have VAR, this is why you should have it. Because that 99% of the time is a foul. 99% of the time it is a foul. Your point is valid, Gus.
And this is the point.
But if you're going to have VAR, you have to get that one right.
Yeah, and this is the point I was about to bring up about VAR. I was just sitting there wondering, on several calls, isn't VAR like available to these refs? Like, why is this not being used? there are several calls. I'm like, okay, that was obviously the incorrect call. Why is this not being overturned? Who? Why is this not being initiated? I'm just sitting there like, the U.S. just repeatedly getting screwed throughout the game, and it felt like that there was no replay coming to change any of that. It's just it was super bizarre just how one-sided the officiating was in this game against the United States.
From what I seen VAR over the years, and from what I feel, I've like first of all, VAR only interferes on key events on the game. It's like when there's a reckless.
Well, this
tackle.
definitely was a key event.
Yeah.
That was the most key event of the entire game.
But
I would agree with that.
But the thing is, Jason, I if it went to VAR, they would still call a penalty, because the thing is, when you play that tackle in slow motion, it's gonna show Gareth Bale being touched. So like VAR, if the referee did not call that a penalty, VAR would. I 1000% would have called that. That if that referee did not call the penalty, VAR would. 1000%. I can tell you that.
Well, maybe it's just our perspectives are a little bit different because I grew up as a goalie. Maybe that plays into this a little bit, but I think that was a very harsh penalty to give, and it directly impacted the result of the game, and it may directly impact who goes through as the second place team in the group, because I think we all expect England to go through winning all three games probably.
Was a Qatari referee. His name is Abdul Hamian Al Jassim was the referee.
Sure, I'm not even going to attempt to say it.
So I think he was very also naive referee.
He's the youngest referee in the World Cup, right?
Let me check. But
I just
he's only like
to get the youngest referee too.
He's only like 34, if I remember correctly.
But he the thing is, like, I only very because he had the clear view. And when Zimmerman came to tackle, I called the penalty before even the referee like put the whistle. Like, because of all the experience in soccer that I have, that was a classic penalty. I won't say it was or not, was or it wasn't, but it was the classic play that referees love to call it a penalty. And one thing also I make, like, for example, the defenders here in Brazil would not give that tackle. They wouldn't do what Zimmerman did, because they knew referees love to give that kind of a play a penalty. So that was
who would have coached against doing crap like that? Jurgen Klinsmann.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree.
And also, too, it feels like to me, because of Gareth Bale as a superstar, that he's more likely to get that call anyway. If that's not Gareth Bale.
That's a good point. Like, the referee probably was impressed by Gareth Bale, and it plays a factor who was involved in the play, definitely.
Yeah, so the referee, Abdul Rahman Ibrahim Al Jassim, I think is his name. I think I just said it right. Is 35 years old, by the way.
Oh, shout out to Alison D'Amato. We're gonna get that in our next segment. That's a very painful thing to talk about, Hendon Hooker stuff. But I appreciate Alison D'Amato. Also, Blanky Ash, James Moore in Tennessee, Bruno Slonik here in Brazil, Claudio Miro Pedro as well. Thanks for those watching us. But back to my, debate on this was a penalty or not. I feel like that's a good point, Jason. I feel like that's when having an experienced coach that play international level plays a factor, especially like a defender player. Because Jurgen Klinsmann, he was a striker, but it was like, for example, Fabio Cannavaro or other, former defenders who, something like that would have happened.
Yeah, and kind of looking ahead, obviously Friday we get England, the other half of not the other half of the UK, but obviously, out of like 67 million people in the UK, 53 million of them are in England. and they are a top 5 team, one of the top 4 favorites to win the World Cup this year. And I would definitely say the absolute, the favorites to win on Friday. I think, to me, if we come out with the exact same plan for England on Friday, I feel like we have to find a way to, well, yes, we have to be aggressive at points, like Jason said. We can't just come out and just go and just expend all of our energy at the beginning, because England will just murder us late if that's the case.
Oh, I agree. If US came that intense against England, they'll give the perfect situation for Southgate team, which player counterattack, have all the you know intelligence and strength on offense. I think US have to be kind of play it slow and let England come to them, not US trying to project the game and go full on it, and then US get a counterattack, score one, and then US have to go on attack, and it gives the perfect situation for England to score, because they can score. Look how they did against Iran. I'm not saying US is worse than Iran. I think they're better, but they have to play more smarter on Friday.
All right, one thing I forgot to bring up too about the end of the game. What was our goalkeeper doing? Matt Turner just running out for no reason to try to bat a ball back out, and then almost left Gareth Bell a wide open shot from half field. Like, that almost cost us the game. And if it wasn't for a really smart tackle, I've said it led to a yellow card. We could have lost on a really, really stupid mistake at the end of the game.
Another example of US was being naive. I feel like it turned into desperation, because it's like US was like, holy cow, like we're tying a game that we should have won. That caused desperation. It's like not everything was over. US got a tie, wasn't the result I feel like they deserve to win, but they're still on it. They are still on it. And shout out to Miguel Ribeiro here in Americana, and shout out to his son David Mascarenhas, also listening to our podcast. But back to my point, like, US have to be smarter and be, don't have all that desperation from the beginning to the end. Because the beginning was intense, but a little bit desperation. In the end, a great example, Nick. Like, the keeper always gave the game away. Like, time was bad. Imagine losing a game that you play better.
That would have been absolutely just it would have ruined the rest of the World Cup, right, for the US, because obviously I don't see us being England. We're gonna have to beat Iran worse than Wales beats Iran, assuming England beats both us and Wales to go through, and obviously not lose too bad to England to where it makes that harder.
I think it all comes down to the matchups of Wales and US against Iran, especially on goal differential. Because I feel like, even if US and Wales ties with England, I think all three is gonna come down to goal differential versus Iran. That's gonna be the biggest factor, in my opinion. I don't know what you think, Jason.
I tend to agree. I thought the winner of this game was going to be the one that went through, but obviously, as a draw, I expect both sides to lose to England, and then obviously, if England just batters one but not the other, I think that'll play a role in it as well. But assuming that both the games against England are about the same, I think it is going to come down to how badly they can put the beat down on Iran. And if I'm honest, I think that Wales is more equipped to do that than the U.S. because Iran is deadly on the counterattack, and the U.S. has shown that they are prone to giving up counterattacks, and I think that's a problem. But with that being said, I did pick the U.S. to finish third in the group. I believe that Wales does go through. And as much as that pains me to say, Of course, I'm going to root on the Stars and Stripes, but you know, I'm being real here. I just don't see it happening for this U.S. team.
And one thing that I think it points out this out pressure this team it was more because they haven't played a World Cup since 2014. That plays a huge factor. You had an entire generation of players that missed out a World Cup, and finally they're getting on it. That lack of experience of a World Cup for a lot of those players plays a huge factor, and it shows how bad the U.S. Bl- uh, blunder in 2018. That's the effects of missing a World Cup you have on your roster.
Oh, absolutely. And this is why it was absolutely crucial for us to make it this year so that we can be ready to go for 26. Because I've said this for over a year, for like multiple years now. It's this World Cup truly is get experience, learn from your mistakes in this World Cup so that you can be ready to go and try to make a run when we host in 26. Because that one will make or break the next few generations of American soccer. Because if you can go on a run at home, get more kids involved in soccer, perhaps ignite conversations about how to better our soccer structure so that we can have more competitive teams moving forward. Eventually the U.S. can compete because there's no reason why the U.S. can't compete. I mean, the U.S. should be able to be competitive in any sport that we want to be competitive in. And soccer
Look
is
at
a sport that we should want to be competitive in.
Look at the Olympics. Like, it's crazy that U.S. dominates the Olympics of a lot of sports who are not popular, and on the biggest and the most popular sport in the world, U.S. cannot be on the top. That's what still baffles me. How U.S. can, be the best in swimming, which is not popular in America, but they can't be good at soccer, and they have a multicultural society. There's people from all over the world in US, and still US cannot make like a like a group that translates that. That's what it still makes me, I can't understand that, how a multicultural society cannot have a multicultural team.
I mean, I think you see it a little bit. You have all of the Mexican American U.S. players, the German American U.S. players. You've got several of those, and then you have Tim Weah, who is the son of probably the best African player to ever live, George Weah, and I think you started to get that, but at the same time, you have to put in the infrastructure to get these guys to a high level earlier, because the way that things are set up in the US, unless you leave the US to go somewhere else for your youth development, you are going to be behind. And that's just the way that sports are set up in this country. And that's why, the best players on this team are the ones that ended up going abroad and growing up in academies elsewhere. Your not Weston McKennie, actually, your Gio Reynas, your Pulisics, those guys, Serginho Dest, those guys are all players who were elsewhere. Weston McKennie is the exception. Matt Turner is the exception. And goalies, of course, are a little bit different, but Weston McKennie primarily is the exception, not the rule. And if you have a team full of guys that left America to go, be in an academy elsewhere, then maybe you're talking being competitive. I think it starts at the very bottom, though.
And to that point, Jason, I mean, me and Nick spoke with a former U.S. men's national team player, Greg Garza, and he was talking about how his young experience in Brazil, play on a young level in the Brazilian soccer, made the resilient player that he was in MLS and then in Mexican soccer and then the U.S. men's national team. What I feel like it's not the infrastructure that I point out. I feel like, you know, it's a crazy idea. I feel like, academies in US should have played the Copinha, like the youth tournament here in Brazil. They should have come down here and play more rough soccer and even get beaten and even, play some rough soccer. But then it will translate into be more experience, into be more gamesmanship, to understand how soccer is played globally. Like if I am Atlanta United Academy or any MLS team academy, I would have definitely tried to play the Copinha, which is one of the largest youth soccer competition in the world, with teams from all over Brazil and even teams from other countries. Because then you have those players experience like what is the soccer that's being played here in Brazil, which is the top level soccer. I feel like that should have been something they do right away, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and plus it's just a cultural thing as well. Soccer here, it's just I don't feel like the pressure gets put on young soccer players that it does for like young football players, young basketball players, young players of other sports, like you get in Brazil, for example, where you see a 16-year-old being able to play professionally because that those kids get treated like adults down there. Here it's Capri Suns.
Yeah, that's a great example, Nick. It's like, you know, in US, like football is the sport that and basketball as well, the sport that's been used for a lot of kids that come from marginalized and even hard backgrounds to kind of get through life and get a better life for their families. That's what soccer is in a lot of countries. Like, in Brazil, big example, like Hendrick literally only played for the Palmeiras academy if uh, Palmeiras gave Hendricks that a job because they needed that money. So that was something very critical. But Jason, you had some final thoughts. I mean, again, we appreciate having you on. I hope you join more of our podcast throughout this World Cup because we love to have you on, man.
Thank you very much, first of all, for having me, and the pleasure is all mine. I love being on here with you guys and talking with you guys. Um, I thank you again. I want to leave by making my predictions for the World Cup. I do have the Dutch beating England in the final of this World Cup, and I would love to find out really quickly your predictions here, and then I do have to get going here pretty soon.
Oh, that would be a bold prediction. Two teams that never won a World Cup getting to the final. That will be something interesting. And before you go, I know we're gonna talk more into that later, me and Nick. But your thoughts on UT, losing to South Carolina and the Hooker, injury. Like I bet, as for me and Nick, it was tough for you to see as well.
Oh, sports are cruel, and to see that happen to such a good player and an even better person is just gut wrenching. I can stomach the loss because our program is not there yet, on that level. So I understand losing a couple of clunkers here and there. I can stomach losing. It's losing the quarterback, Hendon Hooker, and watching that happen to such a good player and an even better person really hurt my heart to see, especially considering that was his last play with Tennessee. But I think what Saturday night showed is that the University of Tennessee is not quite there yet. But the most important thing is that I want to leave with here is people are saying, "Oh, well, we should be disappointed because of what all we've done this year." And then there's other people saying, "Oh, we should be thrilled because nobody expected us to do this well." And I think both of those things are true. I think it's perfectly fair to say, hey, we overachieved this year. We're ahead of schedule. That's wonderful. I think that's a big thing that we should be celebrating. But at the same time, considering what we were able to accomplish this year, being ranked number one for a week, I think it's still important to understand we underachieved this weekend and we should be disappointed given what we have already done this year. Both of those things can be true and should be true. And that's kind of where I sit with it. But I think that this team is ahead of schedule. And the more dudes that this team gets in through recruiting, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because the offense will recruit itself. But it's the defense that needs, the primary attention from these recruiting classes. And I think that's really what this comes down to moving forward. Once you get more recruits on the defensive side, because we're still recovering from the 37 guys in the transfer portal a couple years ago. Let's be real. We are. And once Josh Heupel and staff start to get these defensive recruits in, I think we're going to start to see this team start to fill out and be a little bit more deep at especially the defensive positions. And I think that's when this program is going to take the next step. But again, thank you so much, guys, for having me. I really appreciate you guys. I love being on here, and I can't wait to come back on soon.
Yeah, buddy, it's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure, man. Always a pleasure.
Yeah,
thanks, guys.
Always a pleasure having Jason Wyrick on our show. And before we talk even more about Tennessee, South Carolina, I want to hear what you had your thoughts, Nick, not only on the things on the field but off the field because you were there in Columbia, South Carolina. I want to just give my thoughts on the Brazil game on Thursday because we're not going to be able to do a show before then. I think Brazil should take care of business. I think it's not going to be as easy as people think. Serbia is going to give Brazil a hard time. They play really well on defense. They have such tough players. I think it's going to be hard, but once Brazil score first, I think it's going to be then 2 or maybe even 3. I think Brazil wins 2-0, but it's not going to be easy as people think.
Yeah, I'm very interested in what Brazil has because they are the hands-on favorite to win this year. I just want to see how they handle that pressure because I know there's a lot of pressure on that team. Because it felt like in 18, right? Like they lost that really tough game to Belgium, and with Neymar, it feels like if they're gonna do it, they gotta do it now. And especially with this now, Messi coming out today and saying, "Yeah, this is my last World Cup with Argentina. I know y'all want to prevent him from ever winning a World Cup if it comes to it." And I can just only imagine that the pressure is going to be on for both Brazil and Argentina. So those are, to me, maybe the two most fascinating teams. Those two in England, just in terms of how they handle the pressure. Because teams like Belgium, teams like the Netherlands, I mean, those are teams that are going to be dangerous to all those squads. And obviously you got France as well. And, yeah.
And Brazil and Argentina, Brazil even more, because Argentina, they got through in 2014. But Brazil is 0-4 against European teams in the playoffs. 0-4. Since the 2002 World Cup final versus Germany, it was 2006 elimination to France in the quarterfinals, 2010 elimination to Netherlands in the quarterfinals, 2014 elimination and destruction and whatever you want to call the 7-1 to Germany in the semifinals, and then 2018 in the quarterfinals against Belgium. So really Brazil needs to get break this barrier of eliminating a European team in the playoffs. That's what the biggest challenge. That's why I know Brazil can go through the group stage. That's not the problem. I know Brazil can go through the round of 32. I think they're going to probably face a non-European team. But the quarterfinals against the European team, that's the biggest challenge I want to see this team break through.
Yeah, and whoever they get, it's definitely going to be a challenge. And just being in the Middle East, that's not close to Europe than it is to South America. And historically, Europe does best when the World Cup's on their side of the world. So it's...
I mean, the last time, the World Cup was on the east side of the world back in 2002, Brazil eliminated 4 European teams to win the World Cup. They eliminated Belgium, England, Turkey, and then Germany. So it eliminated 4 European teams in the Asian World Cup. So hopefully that will kind of be their lucky charm. I can say that. And if Brazil, like let's say, qualify at first, like in the Brazilian Group G, so they're gonna face on the teams on the group. So if Brazil goes first, they're gonna be on playing the second in Group H, which is probably gonna be either Uruguay, Ghana, or South Korea. I hope they play Portugal so they can finally eliminate a European team. I think Portugal probably is the weakest European team, and then from then on, I think they can make it the World Cup. That's my prediction.
I remember when we initially looked at the bracket, I think I ended up with Brazil and Portugal in the game, in that game, because wouldn't that just be something? The two main Portuguese countries in the world going head to head in the World Cup. I mean, it's like U.S. and England on Friday.
Oh yeah, that's true. I think it will be a huge playoff game. It'll be Cristiano Ronaldo versus Neymar finally playing head to head in the biggest stage because they never went head to head. Because when Neymar was on Barcelona, Cristiano Ronaldo was already in Juventus, so it was already at Real Madrid, but Real Madrid wasn't like a good squad when Neymar was on top. And then when Neymar left to PSG, then they never face each other. Not even PSG Juventus or PSG Manchester United. So I feel like it would be. I mean, in terms of marketing, you can market this game. I mean, the FIFA is praying for this game. Imagine selling Neymar versus Cristiano Ronaldo. It's like I think it's going to be one of the highest, games ever watched. I think the ratings will be huge.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's going to be several nutty matchups. Like, was it? I think it's like what, Mexico versus Argentina, right? I think that's going to be a game here in the group stage. That game will be huge. I think Germany and Spain play each other. That's going to be a big one. Obviously, U.S. England on Friday. If you just type in United States England on Twitter, just the discourse between the fans of both countries. I mean, this one's going to be a well-watched game because I think England kind of wants to make up for tying with the U.S. back in 2010. They want to beat the United States. Soundly.
I mean, you can go as back as 1950, one of the biggest upsets in one of the biggest upsets in World Cup history, where U.S. eliminated England. So England is kind of U.S. bitch in World Cups, So
I mean, for no reason, because England they really should beat us every time until we take soccer seriously as a country. I mean, they'll say we don't take it seriously anyway because we call it soccer and not football. But we have our own. We have a different version of football that we also watch. But hey, no matter what you call the game, these are going to be huge games, and I can't wait to have a full week of these games before our next podcast, so we can really see what's going. What are some of the surprises? Because there are going to be some surprises, right? Like Germany in 2018, going from winning the World Cup to not even get out of the group stage. Will France see a similar fate? What teams will be surprises? All that certainly to come. So stick with us. We are going to break down so much more of the 2022 FIFA World Cup. But moving on to football, and I must say, before I get into the VOLS, Monday Night Football just kicked off live from Estadio Azteca down in Mexico City. The 49ers and the Cardinals are playing in the rain in Mexico tonight. Game just started, no score. I bet it's going to be a very low-scoring game. Kyler Murray not playing for the Cardinals. So, and I think he may not come back till after Week 13, and at that point, the Cardinals just might be out of the postseason hunt anyway. So we may not see Kyler Murray back for the rest of the year. But kind of switching gears real quick back to college football. As you heard Gus say, I was in Columbia, South Carolina over the weekend. I'll say this, I had a very fun weekend with all my friends. But the game itself was a disaster. I don't know if I've ever left a stadium so disappointed in my life. I was there when Tennessee lost to Georgia State in 2019. And yeah, that's probably the just straight up worst loss I've ever seen in person. But with the stakes that were on the line here, this one will hurt for a very long time. The fact that all we had to do was beat, an average South Carolina team in Vanderbilt. And very likely, assuming certain things went our way, we would find ourselves in the college football playoff. And we gave up 63 points to Spencer Rattler, a quarterback that had thrown 8 touchdowns in SEC play this year. We gave up 6 to him. And his final stat line in this game was 30 of 37 for 38 yards, 6 touchdowns, just absolutely diced us. And the thing with Spencer Rattler, he was the top-rated quarterback coming out of high school. He had his moments at Oklahoma. We knew he had talent, but he hadn't really shown it at South Carolina. I didn't think we were going to see anything like that at all this year, and he had his night. And I'll say, being there, that crowd was electric. That sandstorm. I'll say the sandstorm did not impress me in 2018. The last time I was in Columbia, it impressed me this time. Like, that stadium was shaking. And those fans really got into it, and I think that's when Tennessee started getting into trouble. Because if you look at the stats and you look at the flow of the game, we were able to actually run the ball. We ran for 152 yards in this game. Jabari Small had over 7 yards of carry. Like, we were able to run, but at a certain point when we got behind, we stopped running. And I think that kind of put us in some issues on offense. But I'll say this, though. I mean, we were down 35-17 at one point. We rallied back to 35-31. But this defense, I mean, here's the thing. It's been a problem all year. Like, but let's not kid ourselves. The defense just didn't all of a sudden become bad. I mean, we had issues in the Pittsburgh game even. Like going back to the end of the year. If, Keon Slovis doesn't get hurt and then we play against their backup quarterback, how would that game have turned out, right? Because they were playing really well on offense to begin that game. Florida, I mean, Anthony Richardson, who has struggled mightily in the majority of his games the rest of the year, including, this past weekend, right? They lost to Vanderbilt. He had the game of his life against Tennessee and almost came back from a 17-point deficit to win. Had a chance to win at the end of the game. LSU, yes, we only held them to 13 points, but Jaden Daniels had over 400 yards passing in that game. Of course, we know what Alabama did. I mean, 49 points. Bryce Young had 500 yards, just running up and down the field. We were clearly playing a walk-on in the secondary by the end of that game. Somehow we held Kentucky to 6 points and Will Levis under 100 yards. I don't know how that still happened. I think Kentucky's offense literally is just that bad. And for some reason, they just gave Mark Stoops an extension. Don't understand that for Kentucky football at all. But that's a topic for another day. Missouri, even like last week, remember that we were only up by 4 points in the third quarter because their offense was moving up and down the field on us as well until we kind of put the clamps down later in the game. And, we were talking a lot in the U.S. segment about naivety, about, the team being naive, the coaching maybe perhaps being naive, making naive mistakes. I'll have to admit that as a fan, perhaps I was naive. And shout out to our friend Dusty Bryan from UT. I'm going to be very honest. I thought our offense was so good this year that, we were averaging like 50 points a game that we could just outscore anyone. And we lost to Georgia, but Georgia has an elite defense. I thought outside of a team like Georgia, we should be able just to throw up 50 points on anyone that we play. And we may give up some points to the opposing team. Like I thought we were going to win this game something like, 48-21. Like I thought we were just going to run in there and blow them out. And that's not what happened. And, obviously, if we don't get the defense figured out over the next couple of years, then we'll have a ceiling of 10 wins a year, which obviously, compared to where we have been, is phenomenal. It's much better than going 5-7. Like if we win this weekend, we're still going to a New Year's Six game. But man, if you want to be a national championship contending program, you can't have nights like that. And we can't just have an amazing offense and no defense. Like we saw Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley do that year after year after year. And from the outside, it was always fun watching those teams. So like those teams are running up and down the field. They're scoring so many points. But you notice how many titles that they win? Did you notice how many titles they won? They never won a single title. And obviously, here's the thing. This is not me saying that I've lost any confidence in Josh Heupel. I have not. Josh Heupel has what he has done at Tennessee in 2 years has been a miracle. It has been a sports miracle. We have ended our drought against Alabama. We have defeated Florida. We went down to LSU and beat them by 30. All with a roster that's not even completely full yet. But, we're going to have to field a defense at some point if we are going to do what we need to do. If we are going to truly be a championship contending program eventually. And this is my concern moving forward, right? Because, we just lost Hendon Hooker. And we have to ask how much of our success this year was just because Hendon Hooker was that good. Because Hendon Hooker was incredible this season. He's been incredible in his entire Tennessee career. And to me, he's a top 3 quarterback we've ever had. And he deserved a much better ending than that because he has been, think about like Tennessee. If you compare it to the story of Cinderella, right? Tennessee was stuck in the stepmother's house. Like, let's say a stepmother was like Alabama, right? And their sisters were like, Florida and Georgia, even Vanderbilt to an extent. And they were holding us down. But then the Prince of Shining Armor comes and takes Tennessee to the ball. And we were having a grand old time because we weren't even ranked to begin the season. And, that slipper was fitting very well through September and October. And, yeah, we kind of tripped on ourselves in Athens, but the slipper still fit. But, man, that clock struck midnight on Saturday, and it didn't just strike midnight. The whole clock fell on top of us and crushed us. I mean, I can't think of a more brutal way to end a Cinderella story than this. And now the key is this just going to be a one-off Cinderella story that didn't get its happy ending? Or can the Tennessee football program continue to increase the talent level and continue to get the guys that they need to elevate themselves to move on to being a perennial contender? And that is now the question, because we know we can have really, really good teams under Josh Heupel. This didn't end up being a great team. And, Dusty Bryan, his comment was, it's okay to have an off night, but it's alarming how off we were in Columbia. South Carolina hadn't scored on anybody. They had only had 6 points the week before against Florida. Like, I didn't think they would break 30 on us, even with our bad defense, They had to run trick plays to score on one of their cupcake opponents early in the season, and it seemed like they had scored on us every time they touched the ball. There was one point in this game where South Carolina scored 8 out of 9 possessions, and all of them were touchdowns. It boggles the mind. It's the most mind-boggling loss in Tennessee history. Even outside of the Georgia State game, just because you just didn't see it coming. I mean, we literally had just beaten Missouri 66-24, and then we get 60 burgered ourselves. This one is just never going to make sense.
And one thing great analysis, Nick. Great, perfect analysis. One thing that worries me was that caught my eyes was South Carolina had 12 possessions. 12. 1 punt, 1 end of the half, 1 end of the game, and 9 touchdowns plays. You can't allow 3 quarters of possessions to be touchdowns. You just can't. You just can't. Especially
our third down defense. I gotta see what was the final. I know they had 35 first downs in this game, and on third down they were 8 of 11, and 2 of 2 on fourth down. So on conversions they were 10 of 13, including I think the play that completely ended the game. Any chance of us coming back, that 3rd and 20 when they were up 42-31. We had them at a 3rd and 20, and we just couldn't stop them. We just had no chance. Anything that we tried, we started off in zone. That wasn't working. They tried some man-to-man, just wasn't working. We couldn't get to Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler had time to read books on Saturday night. He could have studied for his final exams if he had wanted to, and then throw the ball down the field. We did not prove. He was able to look like the quarterback we all thought that he could have been coming out of high school. It just a completely just off night. A bizarre night, and obviously people want to blame the whole situation on Jeremy Banks, and was there non-altercation before the game? Go ahead, Gus.
And I was gonna put the clip of Josh Heupel talking about that.
There's a lot of speculation about Jeremy Banks. I'm hoping you can just add some clarity to this. Did he get in an altercation with a teammate? Was he suspended for the South Carolina game? Is he available for Vandy?
We anticipate Jeremy being with us here this week, and as far as what transpired and those type of things, at the end of the day, he wasn't available this Saturday.
So that was Coach Hypo's response. I think he was very vague. I think he should have been on to that, like, because the last thing you want to do when there's rumors is to give a vague response. They should have, tackled the issue, in my
Well, I mean,
opinion.
it's better than lying about it. Like, remember Butch Jones with a shy title, right? He said that he was going to fall. He said he fell in a helmet, which obviously that wasn't true. There was a fight that occurred. Let's see. Because I saw Jeremy Banks tweeted earlier. I'm trying to pull up this tweet from Jeremy Banks that he had earlier.
I'll put it. If you want, I can definitely find that. About I found it. I'll put it. It was more like an Instagram story.
Yeah, well, I saw a tweet from earlier too, but I think he might have
You talk
deleted it.
about that. That's from his Instagram account, gbanks33, saying, "Was it about no conflict or none like that? Get facts, bro. Coming back harder than ever."
Yeah. And by the way, I'm seeing some news from. Hold on, is that from an official source? Because this is unrelated to Tennessee, but it is SEC related. Someone's reporting that Lane Kiffin might be heading to Auburn. So
That'll be huge. That'll be huge.
Oh yeah, so this is a reporter from his name is John Sokoloff. He's from WCBI, which is actually a sister station of my station, WDF in Chattanooga. So hey, kind of cool. I'm getting this news from one of my colleagues out in Mississippi, but he is saying, quote, breaking, Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin plans to step down as the Rebels coach Friday and head to Auburn to become the Tigers' next head coach, according to sources. Sources say the Tigers haven't officially offered the job to anyone yet, so Lane to Auburn is happening story soon, according to a local reporter down in Columbus, Mississippi, which is that area down in central Mississippi that covers both Mississippi State and Ole Miss. So Lane versus Nick Saban in the same state is happening. It's going to be electric. Not official yet, but according to a guy down at WCBI in Columbus, that is happening. Just, obviously, we'll get back to Tennessee real quick. What are your quick thoughts on Kiffin to Auburn?
I feel like he doesn't see Ole Miss getting to the next level. He doesn't see him being on the spotlight at Ole Miss. He knows that if he plays in Auburn, he's going to have to face Nick Saban every year. And then he knows he can make the best of the Iron Bowl rivalry because he knows that how Gus Malzahn took him to another level, was winning Iron Bowls. So I feel like he wants to set his career in a higher level, and Ole Miss not give that. Ole Miss hit that ceiling. The ceiling of Ole Miss right now is being on the top 10. I think even though Auburn is in chaos right now, don't forget, with the right head coach, you can turn this program around in 2 years. Look what Josh Heupel is done in Tennessee in 2 seasons. How quick turn things around. So Lane Kiffin, I think, can turn things around in 2 seasons in Auburn.
I think he can too. I think we just have to kind of remember with Auburn, they're in a tough position where you're in between, Alabama to your west, Georgia to your east, and you have to play those two every single year. And with the interference down in Auburn, I just feel like that's a hard place to win. Now, I know they've had some success, and it's largely dependent on the players that they have. But maybe Lane Kiffin is that guy who will be charismatic enough to kind of unite everyone together to get Auburn back to where they need to go. And,
Tennessee also plays both those teams you mentioned every year too.
It's very true, and we did beat one of them this year, so it's not impossible. I mean, and think about this: Auburn hosts Alabama next year, so Nick Saban will be having to go to the Plains to face Lane. It's going to be. I hope it's true because Lane Kiffin at Auburn is much more exciting than him at Ole Miss because he's never going to win anything significant at Ole Miss. Let's just be honest. It's Mississippi. Doesn't really matter. But
the ceiling has been hit with Lane Kiffin there. I think that's what he feels frustrated. Like he's not going to go above what he did this year, I think.
Absolutely. So segueing back into the balls here, I want to start off with this Dusty comment. Have you guys been seeing all the people connecting this season to 2016 when we have a promising season ruined by losses to Carolina and Vandy? We really need to win this week to get that bad mojo out of here. I agree. Now, it's a little different, right? Because that Tennessee team wasn't going to make the playoffs because we had lost to A&M and Bama heading into Carolina, but we still had our destiny in front of us to make it to Atlanta, and of course, we lost to Carolina. Of course, we were already out of the picture for the SEC here, but we had a chance to go play for a national title this year, and it blew up in our face on Saturday. And kind of beginning to think about this Vanderbilt game, I am terrified on Saturday. I'm just going to be honest, because we saw what our defense looked like on Saturday. They couldn't stop a nosebleed. This Vanderbilt team is hot. They just beat Kentucky for their first SEC win in 3 years, and then they turn around and beat Florida for the second time since like 1990. And they had the most orderly courts or fields rushing of all time. Did you see that video, Gus, where the Vanderbilt students, they were walking one by one out into the field? That was quote unquote their field storming. It was quite
I want to see that and react alongside with you. So
just look it up. Vanderbilt field storm.
Vanderbilt, what to say?
They're field storming.
Field storming. I wanna react with you.
I mean, this is the most organized field storming of all time because they're literally just. It's not like Tennessee where we were all like jumping over each other to get out on the field.
I can't find on YouTube. Do they have on Twitter?
And that's where it's on Twitter. And I'll be very honest. We left my friends and I. We left the game when Hendon Hooker got hurt. Like that was our final straw. That's from Nick De La Torre.
Oh, I found it.
Possibly the slowest rushing of the field ever. And they're just walking out on the field.
Oh, I saw. No, I found it. I found the video.
It's just it's so funny.
I found it. I have. Hold on. Let me. Is that the video?
Yep. Just look at this.
Oh my God! That's not like storming the field. Oh my God!
Yeah, it's just like, yay, we're walking on the field. Yay, we're 5-6 now. I mean
that's like, a tour of the stadium is more more in the energy than that. That's like you visit, they say like, let's go here. We're going from the stands to the field. Walk with me.
Yeah, I mean, hey, for Vanderbilt, obviously this is huge for them. Like they have taken some big strides this year. And Clarkley, obviously, he was saying in the offseason, we're going to be we want to be the best SEC team. And I don't think Vanderbilt's ever going to be the best SEC team, but they have taken some significant strides, and they have a very real chance to beat us this week. They just do. Like if our defense does not come back to at least some sort of okayish form, and then also now we got to think about this too. We're now in the Joe Milton era, or we're back in the Joe Milton era. Remember, because he got the start in the first 2 games last year, didn't play too high, so he got benched. He's looked good in his backup role,
but
I don't know about him as a starter.
Yeah, that's one thing. It's one thing to play when you go into the game and the game is already decided, like you don't have any pressure. Now all the pressure is all Joe Milton. And Tennessee feel like needs to win this game to assert the dominance, because if you lose to Vandy, I feel like it will, even to that point, like even what Dusty said, like in 2016, Tennessee had the chance to go to the Sugar Bowl with a win over Vandy, and then Vandy beats Tennessee, so it kind of even put more sour into the season. I feel like if Vandy wins this weekend, it will be like double the souring. It will make Tennessee is still going to a really good bowl game, but make it 9-3, and even kind of parallel to 2016 at the end, unfortunately.
Yeah, And as I said, Vanderbilt has all the momentum right now. We just lost our chance at playing for the playoffs. And of course, actually, we still got a New Year's Six game. But this week is going to be critical for Josh Heupel. This one is huge for him. He's got to win this one. Or otherwise, this is going to be the first big stain on him here at Tennessee. If we lose back-to-back games to Carolina and Vanderbilt, that not only knocks us out of the playoffs, but knock us out of a New Year's Six bowl. And then we're going to the Citrus. We've gone from the playoffs to the Citrus Bowl in 2 weeks. That's what we're facing here if we do not beat Vanderbilt. There has to be a sense of urgency around this program, because if we win this game, we finish 10-2, which we haven't won double-digit games in a season since, I believe, 2001. And then you're going to the Orange Bowl. You're going to like the Cotton Bowl, the Orange Bowl, maybe even the Sugar Bowl, which that is an incredibly successful season for Tennessee, despite losing to South Carolina and that killing your playoff chances. And at the end of the day, it hurts not going to the playoffs, but I don't think we would have won a playoff. We would have won the title anyway.
The last time Tennessee had double-digit wins was 2007, the last full year of Philip Fulmer.
Well, that included the Outback Bowl win against Wisconsin.
I guess the last regular season double-digit
Let
win.
me see.
It was 2001. It was Philip Fulmer.
Yeah, exactly. We have to find a way to win the game. I don't care how we get it done. And then again, I know I just saw my team go up 63 points. So I feel like for the first time this year, I'm actually like legit nervous heading into a game, because I feel like I've had the utmost confidence in this team every single week all year. But now I'm getting like those flashbacks to years past where, I don't trust this team like I did. And I hate that I feel like this, but
the thing is, I mean, we're all sorry and we all feel for Hayden Hooker, but I bet Hayden Hooker feels, mad at how poorly the defense play, because it forced him to be even more urgency and offense and probably contribute to him being injured. So Tennessee
thing. I mean, the score of the game doesn't matter in that case. I mean, that could have happened. Imagine if that had happened and we were up like 30, how we would be feeling. I mean, it'd be playing in the playoffs with Joe Milton as quarterback. Like
but what I'm saying is, like, of course that could have happened in any moment in the season. It could have happened even when we were up by 20 versus Missouri. I know injury is an injury, but of course it contributes to an injury when you have to play with more urgency and you have to be the savior of a team where the defense cannot stop anything.
Yeah, and that's going to have to be the thing moving forward. And I'm just curious to see what we do this offseason with the defensive staff. Do we make any changes there? Because I'm not 100% convinced that that's necessary. Now, I think secondary, we might need to make a change at that particular position. I'm not 100% out on Tim Banks. I think a part of the problem here is we just don't have the dudes yet. We don't have a full roster. The talent there is just not great. Yeah.
And one thing, like, do you remember in 2020 when when Tennessee lost to Auburn, and I asked Jeremy Pruitt back then if he trusts his offensive coordinator because how badly we play on offense on that day? Do you think it's appropriate to ask the reverse question if Heupel trusts Tim Banks moving forward on how bad the defense play against South Carolina?
I mean, I guess if I had to phrase the question, I would ask, do you think the defensive preparation was sound enough for you to have success? And this is the thing. This is not the only bad game Tennessee has played on defense. We have, I believe, the worst pass defense in the entire country, or like one of the top 2 or 3 in the entire country. I mean, it's been our Achilles heel, and it absolutely shattered on Saturday. It finally caught up with us. I mean, that was the thing that was going to prevent us from achieving our goals. But you also have to wonder, too, our team's starting to figure out our offense to an extent. Because we saw what Georgia did. Carolina kind of did a lot of the similar things that Georgia did. They kind of kept us in a short passing game, kept everything in front of them. And I think it frustrated us at times on offense. And with our defense situation, if we're not scoring every single possession, we're putting ourselves in a place where we're playing with fire.
Oh,
And
yeah, I agree.
you can't win every game if your offense has to literally be perfect every single week to win.
And look how Georgia is winning. Look how great their defense is. So that shows that you can have the flashiest offense, but at the end, if you have a really solid defense, it gets to the promised land. That's what Kirby Smart has been doing season after season. And again, I think Georgia's going to win the national championship. Georgia's going to win it. I think Georgia is going to win back-to-back national championships, and I think they're going to, create a dynasty in college football. I don't see Ohio State. I don't see Michigan. I don't see TCU. And I don't see USC beating Georgia on a neutral field. I just don't see it.
I agree. I agree with that completely. Even though Georgia, I think, has the worst offense out of any of those teams. I mean, it doesn't matter. Georgia has a good enough offense with that defense where I don't see any team doing enough to beat Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, it would take Stetson Bennett playing so badly. And he played horrible on Saturday, and that still wasn't enough for Kentucky because they can't do anything on offense because that team was so good.
But it's not about him playing horrible. I think the point is Stetson Bennett doesn't make mistakes. He plays in the system. He's the perfect system quarterback for Kirby Smart. And he would have to start being reckless. And I don't think he's going to be reckless. I think he's going to, keep on what, in the system. And if the defense keep playing how they are playing, Georgia's going to win the national championship back-to-back years. And I think Kirby Smart is going to create a dynasty.
Yeah, and Justin made a good point. Georgia plays down the competition, but they play their best ball against the best teams they play. And that's what lured me into a false sense of security about that Georgia game a few weeks ago. Because I was like, they struggled against Kent State. They struggled against Missouri. I don't think they could keep up with us. But they had an amazing game plan to just completely destroy our offense that day. And our offensive line could not hold back their front seven. And that's the thing. We're going to have to decipher teams like that. And as they learn our plays, like apparently on the broadcast, apparently it was revealed that we only have 11 offensive plays because that's how fast we go. And because, the part of the magic is, we go so fast that you don't really need that many plays because the whole goal is you're going so fast, you're going to wear the defense down to have success, and you're going to catch them out of position, which we do to most teams. But I feel like every single year we're going to have a couple of teams that are going to get better and better at defending what we do, and it's going to cause us to have to win in some different ways. Now, we've seen an evolution in Heupel. Like some of the stuff he does this year is super different than what he did last year. Like his short yardage play calling has been phenomenal this season compared to last season. Some of the decision making has been phenomenal compared to last season. He's improved as a coach this year. And I think we'll see more improvement. I think we're going to see more of a diversification of the offense moving forward. But obviously, none of that matters if we can't field a defense worth a crap that is going to give our offense a chance to not have to be perfect every single week. And I mean, like I think about the 8-minute drive against LSU that we had. We couldn't have done that last year. So we have been far more patient this year. We have been far more, I wouldn't say disciplined, but we've been a lot smarter as a team. But we're going to have to be even smarter because we still have a massive talent deficiency that we're going to have to catch up to the rest of the top teams with. And, I hope we didn't hit our ceiling too early.
That's what I was afraid of. That's what I was really afraid of, hitting the ceiling too early. Because if you compare like what Dusty brought out, a lot of comparison to the 2016 team, that team took a while to get there under Butch Jones. It took 1, 2, 3 seasons to get to that point. Josh Heupel took 1 season.
Right. And I think a lot of them, and I think just Hendon Hooker being so special, made that a possibility. How many quarterbacks would have taken Tennessee? Think about it, if you don't have Hendon Hooker, we don't beat Pittsburgh. We don't beat Alabama. We probably don't beat Florida. Hendon Hooker won us all those football games because of his special play this season.
I agree. And back to Dusty's point about Georgia playing down the competition, but they play awesome against good teams. That's true. Like, I mean, if you see the plays of the Georgia Kentucky game, like 3 field goals, 1 interception, 1 touchdown, and a punt and go on downs, and it's a if you're like, oh my god, they play horribly, but the defense held South Carolina to only one. I think it was like what one touchdown. So it shows how. And I mean, I want to compete with Georgia before even competing to a national championship. We still have to get the SEC East back before even thinking about the SEC as a whole or even a national championship. That's like I wanted them to go to the national championship, but I want Tennessee to, you know, get to the same level or closer at least to Georgia to compete at least on the division level. I know maybe the SEC will get rid of the divisions. I heard, I saw rumors about that, but if they kept the divisions, we're gonna have to compete with Georgia.
Yeah, I think it's going to change in the coming years. I don't think we'll have to deal with Georgia every single year, but wherever we go, we're going to have to go against a great team every single year. I mean, it's just facts. It's just life in the SEC. And, we'll see if we can truly build a sustainable program. And that's not the goal. We know we can have great teams. Well, I wouldn't call this a great team. We can have really good teams. But there's still a lot of room to grow. And I think Heupel's a smart enough coach to get us to the great program. But that's going to take years of work. And really, I don't think we'll have an answer to this question for about 3 to 4 more years. Because remember, when we hired him, we said this would be probably a 5-year process to truly rebuild. We're still in the rebuilding phase. And we've kind of forgotten that. We forgot that we were rebuilding because we got to such an amazing start this year. But we are.
But Dusty pointed out about the proposal of Tennessee, Georgia, Auburn, Alabama. I wouldn't do that. I still think the SEC will have a perfect division if they only put Arkansas in the East and then get Oklahoma and Texas on the West. That would be the perfect, because Arkansas don't have any rivals in the West, and then you have Alabama, Auburn, Alabama.
Arkansas, Texas A&M's a robbery though. That's a robbery. Like that goes back to the Southwest Conference days, and Arkansas, Texas is a rivalry too. So because that goes back historically too to the Southwest Conference days, and really those are more natural rivals for Arkansas than really anyone in the SEC.
So I'm trying to think of a team that we have to put in the West to the East to fit Oklahoma and Texas in one division. That's
Missouri should go West.
But then Missouri go West and then Oklahoma and Texas go East?
Okay, I'm trying to think. So, because here's the thing. I don't know if we're going to have 2 divisions because we may end up with 4 pods is what we may end up with.
But I think divisions are so great because you get crowned as a division champ instead of a pod champ. I think but it's just finding one. We have going to have to sacrifice one team. I mean, I think we should sacrifice Arkansas. They can, fit in their schedule with at least one team from the West that will play every year. It could be Texas. It could be Mississippi State. I don't know.
Well, here's what I'm thinking, because you have the 2 Texas schools. You have Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, and then you have the 2 Mississippi schools. To me, those should be your West teams. And then obviously you have Kentucky, the 2 Tennessee schools, the 2 Alabama schools, Georgia, Carolina, Florida for the East. I mean, that would be straight up geographical in terms of East versus West.
So what do? You put Missouri on the West, and then you take out Auburn and Alabama to put on the East to make it 8, and then you put Oklahoma and Texas, so you have LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi, Texas A&M. You have Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas. It's still missing one. I don't know.
I'm trying to think. So the West would be Texas, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, LSU, Arkansas, Missouri, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, LSU. The East would be Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida. And think about, like, I mean, from a pure historic rivalry perspective, that would be amazing. I mean, remember this: Tennessee Auburn used to be a major rivalry back before divisions. Like, we used to play every single year, and in that alignment, Tennessee and Auburn would be a rivalry again, especially if Lane Kiffin's there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like your point. I haven't considered. I like it because, and this alignment will even clear more divisions of the state. Because if you think geographically, you would have the schools from Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Texas and Oklahoma in one division, and you have the schools from Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, and South Carolina in the other division, and Kentucky in the other division.
I mean, and you virtually keep every single rivalry. I mean,
Yeah,
you want to use cross division stuff. So, like, you would have to choose between LSU, Alabama, LSU, Auburn, and LSU, Florida. So, like, LSU would probably take the biggest beating.
I think they would, like Alabama would put LSU as their like division opponent every year, like they do with Tennessee. That's what they do.
Of course, we would have to choose a new division opponent every single year. So I'm trying to think how that would even work.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, who would be our every year opponent in the West? Maybe Texas. UT,
honestly,
right?
I'll say this: Alabama, Mississippi State. Honestly, I would consider maybe as your permanent there. Bama, Mississippi State. You'd have maybe Auburn, LSU. I would do like Florida and. Honestly, I would bring it back. I'd keep like I'd make like South Carolina and Arkansas a thing. I'd make I don't know, like Vanderbilt, Ole Miss. That's been a traditional rivalry. But just as that, we could do away with permanent cross division rivals as well. And honestly, that you might need to do that just to be able to play teams more often.
Or what Dusty suggested, like we could do away with the permanent cross division rivals. I mean,
what if we just do what the Pac-12 does now and do no divisions? Have a couple of permanent, like have half your schedule be permanent, have the other half be rotating, and just take the top two teams. Why have divisions?
Yes, that's true too. I just like divisions because it keep it more competitive and it gives a sense of accomplishment at the end of a regular season. That's what I feel it because, I mean, if you get rid of divisions, that is a number one versus a number two. Like, okay, you have your SEC regular season champion, as in like basketball, but then you get
with divisions though. Like, I feel like they're arbitrary because, like, look at the Big Ten West, for example. Whoever wins that division isn't even going to be ranked. And they're going to get slaughtered by the winner of Ohio State, Michigan this weekend. Is that really that much of an accomplishment to win the Big Ten West?
Currently is Iowa Hawkeyes and Purdue with 5-3, and we both know that they're not going to compete with ever Ohio State and Michigan. Like, I think when USC and USC, because like we talk about the SEC, I think the Big Ten is going to get rid of divisions when USC and UCLA comes to the conference. I feel like, because if you think about it, look how unfair it is for Penn State getting a tremendous season, being ranked number 11, and they're third in the division. Are they worse than Iowa or Purdue? No.
I mean, they would have swept the entire Big Ten West if they were out there. There'd been several divisions that would have won across the country. I mean, the Big 12, look at them. They do a round robin schedule, and they're going to end up with the two best teams in the Big 12 title game. So I just think all of that's the most fair way to do it. Honestly, though, with the 12-team playoff, we're going to have to even ask, are championship games even going to be necessary at the end of the season for conferences? Because these teams are going to have to play so many more games now to win a national title. Are those conference title games even worth it when, let's say, like this year for the SEC, right? You're going to have Georgia and LSU play for the SEC championship. But then if we were in a 12-team playoff, you conceivably could have Alabama, Tennessee, maybe Ole Miss, go to the playoff and just skip the SEC title game. So it's
No,
one less game of wear and tear.
that's not gonna happen, Nick. I think let's say the ESPN bought the media rights for the SEC, right? The
Right.
SEC championship is the crown, is the biggest game. They're not gonna want to give that away. That's for sure. Like
Right. But they also have the playoffs as well. So and to them, they're trying to make that the crown. Now, I'll say this: the playoffs, even though yes, that's the national title game, I do not think that's from the emotional impact of college football fans. I do not think that college football is the thing most people are concerned about year to year, because they're worried about beating their rivals. They're worried about winning their conference. That's what I'm saying, and that's why idealistically I would want there to, I guess, remain conference title games and to keep the conference championships to be more important. But the issue is, if the playoffs are going to become so important, and especially with the conferences being a 12-team playoff.
So what do you suggest is crown so basically do like basketball does and just get rid of the tournament. Like you have a SEC regular season champion, whoever is the best. Let's say this year was Georgia. Georgia was the best team in the SEC. They have the perfect record. 11-1, 11-0. They're gonna get the win this week and get 12-0. There's SEC regular season champions, and then you go straight to the playoffs, the 12-team playoff. That's what you propose.
I mean, that might be the way they need to do it to make it more fair. Because it feels like for some of these teams, it's just not going to be completely fair if they have to play an additional game. And effectively, they're getting. I understand they're the top 4 teams would get a bye, but let's say you did well enough to make it into the conference title game, but you have to play one extra game. You lose that extra game, and now you have to play that first weekend in the 5 through 12 range against a team that got an extra bye week because they weren't good enough to make their conference title game. So you are now at a disadvantage because you made your conference title game and you lost. Because you don't get that in professional sports, because in the NFL, you have to go through and win the AFC or the NFC to go to the Super Bowl, because it's baked into the playoffs. These conference title games are not baked into the playoffs.
I mean, if you think about it, the Alabama 2018 title, they didn't even win. They didn't even win their division. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
Alabama.
That's exactly what I thought of. I mean, Georgia last year, they got blown out in the SEC title game, and they just had the chance to play Bama again and beat them there. So the SEC title game last year was completely meaningless. Yeah, I know Bama has a conference title out of it, but I mean, I imagine they would want to trade that conference title for the national championship.
So, I mean, if you think about it in terms of meaningless, even I believe it was 2018. I might be wrong, but I remember there was a year that Alabama. I think it was 2017. Yeah, 2017, 2018 national title. I mean, they were the national champions, but they don't even win the division. So that was the whole point that I agree with you, Nick, in terms of divisions and conference championship not making any sense, because your national championship title did not get any of those.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what I'm thinking about to do in the division. It's in certain cases, like Tennessee, like if we had just taken care of our business against Carolina and this upcoming week against Vandy, we would have had a shot to do the same thing, to do the exact same thing, but not even winning the SEC East. So, it's just all, the whole system is it's weird. If there's a way you could streamline it, it would make way more sense. And then, like in college basketball, there's so many teams and it's so much more random, I feel like, that you can justify it. Because if you win the entirety of March Madness, you had to beat like 6 teams to do it. So that's impressive.
And in basketball, it makes sense because let's say, I remember when Tennessee had a down year 2019, 2020. If they won the SEC championship, they would have gone to March Madness. That makes sense to play the tournament of your conference, because that gives you a spot in the playoffs. literally gave the spot on the playoffs. In college football, we literally just gave 2 cases of not even winning the division and not even making to the the conference championship, and you still make the playoffs.
And there's a chance too. Whoever loses Michigan Ohio State this week is still going to get in. There's a chance, a really good, especially if it's like an instant classic type of game. I think there's a high likelihood that does happen.
Yeah, like a nail biter. Like I remember when the last time they were both in that position, being on the top 4, it was in 2016, and Ohio State won on overtime, and it was a very controversial 4th down that was converted to a 1st down. But it can happen like that again.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to handle all of this, but I guess speaking of the college football playoff, real quick, what do we think? We have this last week of the regular season. Of course, headline game this week is Michigan Ohio State. Of course, we have some other big games too. Georgia's playing Georgia Tech, a team that's getting a lot better. I mean, shout out to Georgia Tech. I know they're not making a bowl game, but they have played way better since
they have a chance to make a bowl game.
What?
They still have a chance. They 5-6. If they win Georgia, somehow they get into a bowl game. So
man, could you imagine if they did? But I definitely don't see that happening. But
I know.
Then again, I didn't see South Carolina being in Tennessee either. So you never know. I mean, Georgia's a 36-point favorite heading into that game.
They're playing at home. They're playing at Sanford Stadium. So
yeah. So Georgia Tech. I mean, hey, shout out to them. They're playing way better this year. Of course, you got Michigan, Ohio State.
They just beat the number 13 in the country, UNC, like North Carolina. So shout out to them.
Yeah, and that definitely took out North Carolina. And it may have taken out Clemson, too, because Clemson, I think, needed North Carolina to win out. To get a chance at really one more truly impressive win.
I mean, the ACC just butchered their chances. I mean, the ACC implode on themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, and looking elsewhere, of course, we got Carolina, Clemson. See if Carolina can pull off another upset. LSU's at Texas A&M. If they can win that game, then they set themselves up maybe for a win-and-in scenario against Georgia.
I think Texas A&M is going to win that game. I think that Texas A&M is going to win that game.
With what offense, Gus? They have no offense.
I mean, I'm just saying that when they faced teams that were higher ranked than them, like they're 2-2 against teams that were ranked higher than them. They beat the number 10 Arkansas and they beat the number 13 Miami. I'm just saying they're 2-2 against teams that are ranked higher than them this season.
Well, that would certainly kind of like how this past weekend was not great for Josh Heupel. That would be really bad for Brian Kelly if they lose that game. And obviously would salvage something for Texas A&M. Did you see the crowd for Texas A&M this past week against Massachusetts? Just horrible. I mean, they've given up on that program right now. I just don't see it right now for A&M. But hey, maybe they get it together and they come out and they fight hard one last game. And you never know what could happen.
Because the thing is, if they win this game out against LSU, no matter how bad the season is going to end, it's going to finish on a higher note. It's going to be like, hey, we beat the number 6 team in the country. So they need to win this game to finish the season strong, to have some kind of a hope for next year. This game for Texas A&M is not for this season, it's for the next season. Jimbo Fisher knows that he needs to win this game in order for him to have a peaceful, at least a somehow peaceful offseason. And I hope
any type of peaceful offseason. But hey, that would make it at least a little bit better. At least, hey, keep me around and we'll get more of those type of wins.
It's about hope. If they win this game, it'll give them more hope and more, time for Jimbo Fisher. But if they lose this game badly, I think he can be fired. I think he's gonna be fired. It's gonna be a blowout, if this game's turn out like South Carolina, Tennessee, I think Jimbo Fisher is gonna get fired.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly going to be fascinating to see what the crowd even looks like there on Saturday night in Kyle Field.
I
Also,
think they're gonna show up. I think they're gonna show up because it's a huge game against the number 6 team in the country.
it's
But the
senior
point
night as
is,
well, and I hope they do show out for them.
yeah. Go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
So also we have TCU at home against Iowa State. Of course, TCU wins this game. They finished the regular season undefeated. You know, and I was thinking about this earlier about TCU. If they win on Saturday and they enter the Big 12 title game undefeated, and right now it looks like they're going to play Kansas State in that championship game, are they automatically in at 12-0?
I mean, I don't.
Because if they lose to Kansas State, let's just there. Let's say they beat Iowa State and they say they lose to Kansas State close. That's a team they have already beaten this year. So your one loss is a team that you already beat. And you beat everyone else.
No, in order for TCU to get in, TCU needs to win out because the committee is not going to play any favors for TCU. They would rather put one loss Michigan instead of a one loss TCU. That's a fact. Even one loss USC will get ahead of a one loss TCU. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, if USC wins out, because think about it, so USC just beat UCLA, huge game, huge rivalry win. Caleb Williams was spectacular, in my opinion. Now, if all the other Heisman favorites either go getting hurt, like our guy Hendon Hooker, or the other guys like C.J. Stroud, Blake Corum not having great games, I think Caleb Williams now is the Heisman favorite for me.
And it's a huge accomplishment for Lincoln Riley. Again, another quarterback Heisman winner, a third for Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, but they have a huge game this week. They welcome in Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame. Notre Dame, you know, a very weird season for them, right? Like, they have started off horrible, like losing to Marshall, lost to Stanford. They're like 1-3 at one point. But they have gotten it together. They've quietly gotten it together. They're now 8-3. Because they had a huge win against Clemson a few weeks ago. Can they ruin USC season as well?
I mean, against ranked teams, they are 3-1. They only lost to number 2 Ohio State in Columbus. So, I mean,
this is where we kind of find out, has Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch learned how to put a defense with that offense? And this is the lesson that Josh Heupel, I think, is going to have to figure out over time too. Can he pair a defense with his offense? Lincoln Riley, that's always been his Achilles heel. Never been able to put a good defense with his offenses. And USC's defense this year really hasn't been great. They gave up 45 this past week to UCLA. Notre Dame doesn't have a phenomenal offense, but they're going to score some points on USC, and I think they're going to try to play some keep away. I think it's going to be a tight one in LA.
And the thing is, I mean, it would be funny because Notre Dame already spoiled Clemson's season. So are they going to spoil USC season? Is Marcus Freeman is going to be the factor of this playoff? Because they already knocked Clemson out. They knock USC out? And the game is in LA. So, you know, that gives a huge favorite, huge, you know, lead for USC. But Notre Dame's on a high. They won their last 5 games, and they're playing better every, you know, time. Their average scoring, they score 44, 41, 35, 35, 44.
Yeah, you know, but that's the thing, though. That's kind of the same thing that we saw at Tennessee, right? Like, we were scoring so much that, there's no way that the offense is going to let us down. And we get into a game where offense was 100%. Defense couldn't pull through for us. And Notre Dame has a good enough defense to where they could frustrate USC a bit in this game. And we're after, and that's my question about USC this week against Notre Dame. And then if they survive it, can they do the same thing next week to Bo Nix and Oregon, a team that I know is going to score a ton of points on them? Can they outscore Oregon? If they can do that, then they're in the playoffs, because those are 3 straight great wins for USC. But I'm not completely sold. So, but we'll see. If USC wins out, they're definitely in as well. So I think any other games, Auburn, Alabama is not really a playoff thing. Clemson, if they beat Carolina bad enough, they get South Carolina this week, North Carolina next week. If they blow out both of those teams and they get some help in front, they need USC to lose. They need, I think, the loser of Michigan, Ohio State to lose badly. I think they might need TCU to lose. And if they're 12-1 ACC champions with some decent wins, maybe.
I think you said it perfectly. The Tar Heels losing to Georgia Tech finish any hope, because if they're like, okay, they beat a top 15 team in their conference final, maybe, but now North Carolina is gonna fall off a cliff. If Tennessee is gonna fall, imagine North Carolina is gonna fall off a cliff.
Yeah, I
So
think we're gonna fall to like 10. We're 9 in the AP, we're 11 in coaches. So I think we'll still be 10 because we still have wins over 2 top 10 teams over LSU and Alabama. So they're gonna keep us in that top 10. North Carolina, they're gonna fall off.
North Carolina is gonna go to the like 21, 23 tops.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And also just looking around the country too. Obviously, this is rivalry week. A lot of great rivalry games across the country. Just looking around, is there one rivalry game that stands out to you here? Because for me, I'm thinking about games like Kansas at Kansas State.
Yeah,
this is going to be a very interesting game this year. Kansas, they're 6-5. They're having a really good season by their standards. I know they lost to Texas last week, but I mean, still big game in the Sunflower Showdown. I'm thinking about games like Florida State on Friday night, Black Friday night. Florida coming off that embarrassing loss in Vanderbilt. Can they kind of end Billy Napier's first season on the high note with a huge upset win over Florida State? And for Mike Norvell, this is a huge game. He's got to find a way to beat the Florida Gators.
I mean, for me, a big game, right? It's not a big rivalry, but it's still a big game in the state of Texas. Is Texas Baylor? Both came really close to beat TCU, and it's a big game for Steve Sarkisian if they can get this 8-4 regular season. And I don't know for a fact, but I guess they're still competing to get the second spot in the Big 12 conference title. They need, I guess they need Kansas State to lose and Texas to win to get to at least a conference title. That would be huge for Steve Sarkisian.
I think one coach that needs to win and needs to win desperately this week is Mike Leach. Mississippi State, Ole Miss Thursday night. Especially now with these rumors that Lane Kiffin's has 1 foot out the door. We'll have to see how Ole Miss comes out with their motivation. Mike Leach needs to beat Lane Kiffin on Thursday night. If he loses and Mississippi finishes 7-5 this year, I think the heat's going to start to turn up on him in Mississippi State, because I feel like his team is underachieved this year. I feel like it's just that brand of football they play is just not very exciting. It's just not been very effective. And they're losing all their big games.
I mean, this game's going to be in Oxford, so it will be even a huge victory for Mike Leach, because Mike Leach, with all the folklore, with all the funny things he does, he needs to be a victorious head coach. He needs to get big wins in order for being the SEC. Not only funny things, but actual results. And winning the Egg Bowl can definitely bring some peace down in Starksville.
Yeah, and some other games too. Tulane, Cincinnati on Friday. That game may go a long way to determining who the G5 team is that goes to the New Year's Six, which could be huge for Tennessee, because if we end up maybe going to the Cotton Bowl, we could play the winner of Tulane and Cincinnati. So that's just one thing to keep in mind there.
How about Louisville, Kentucky? Two teams that because I know we brought Jason here, but at the beginning of the season, we never thought Louisville would have a better record than Kentucky.
Yeah, Kentucky is still the 3.5-point favorite. I'm taking Louisville to win this game. Kentucky's their season has just been an absolute abject failure. You have what experts still think is a first-round draft pick. You have the most talent maybe you've ever had on your football program, and you very well may have finished 6-6 this year. And think about it, and really think about it, as bad as our team has been on defense this year for the Vols. Think about the one game where they looked really good. It was Kentucky, because their offense is so outdated. It's just not good. I think they're going to lose to Louisville. And I think they're going to finish 6-6. Just
Another game. Another game that caught my eye is not a rivalry game, but I think still it's not huge, but it's very important for the program. Is the Miami Hurricanes? I think the Hurricanes needs to win this game to at least make a bowl game in Mario's Cristobal first year. They gotta make a bowl game in Mario's Cristobal first year because with other swag, they start the season. I believe was like ranked in the top 10. I mean, they were ranked in the high. I think they were ranked number 13 at some point, and then they fall off a cliff. So, do you think Miami needs to make a bowl game and win this game?
Well, it is Cristobal's first year. I think he has to increase the talent level on that team. So here's the thing: people think of Miami as this name brand program, and just because they're in Florida, they're always going to have a super talented team. That's not really the case. Miami right now, they're just not anywhere close to where they need to be. They're really similar to Tennessee. Was a few years ago, where they don't have the Jimmys and the Joes right now, and some of the games they've lost this year are inexcusable. I mean, 8 turnovers against Duke, losing to Middle Tennessee State. None of that should have ever happened with Miami, but that's the situation to find themselves in. I don't think they're going to win this game. I think they're going to finish 5-7. Disappointing season. One more team I wanted to bring up as well, Missouri. They have a chance to go bowling if they can beat Arkansas. Eli Drinkwitz needs that. He needs to find a way to win that football game because to me, he's been disappointing for Missouri. He talked a lot over the offseason. Here's the thing. Eli Drinkwitz and Shane Beamer, to me, are both equally annoying. But now, to me, Shane Beamer has a signature win he can hang his hat on over Tennessee. And as much as heartbreaking and as annoying as that is to me personally, that's huge for Shane Beamer. He has that. He can tell the recruits, look at us. Look at what we did to the number 5 team in the country. Missouri doesn't have that. Missouri, they're kind of that odd thin SC that's never really made sense. And for Eli Drinkwitz, if he misses a bowl game here, that's tough. He's got to find a way to beat Arkansas.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like that's a good point. Like, and South Carolina, they're coming off a great win over Tennessee that we analyzed. Imagine beating Clemson as well to make it to the bowl, to make even the higher bowl game.
That's very possible. If Spencer Rattler plays that way again, and here's the thing: Clemson has a way better defense, so I don't think he will. But that's a team with a lot of confidence, and I think unfortunately, I have severely underrated Shane Beamer as a coach, and he's going to be a problem. Yeah, and we're going to have to find ways to beat him every single year. So, also shout out Oregon State as well. Big game for the Beavers here. In what's going to be a top 25 matchup in Corvallis. I'm sure that atmosphere is going to be amazing. But I guess, do you want to quickly, before we kind of shift away from college football, do you want to quickly pick Tennessee Vandy?
I think it's gonna be 35-25.
That's fair. I'm gonna be honest. If I were completely objective, I might pick Vandy to win, but I believe in Josh Heupel enough to get this team rallied around Joe Milton, to play for Hendon. I think we're going to win this thing 38-31. I think it's going to be really close. The defense will do just enough here. Milton will make enough plays. I think we're going to run the ball a lot here. And we're going to find a way to get out of it. The line right now is 14, so if you're a neutral bettor, maybe go Vandy plus 14. But yeah, so I think it's going to be a really tight game. Hopefully the Vols can win this and go to a New Year's 6 bowl game. And as Dusty alluded to, avoid that 2016 juju, because if we lose this game, it's going to be a very long offseason. Let's just say it as it is, because man, you had everything in front of you, and then if we go 1-3 in November, that's tough. I guess also too, just really fast in the biggest game of the weekend, Michigan Ohio State. Who wins?
Finally, Jim Harbaugh is gonna win back-to-back years against Ohio State, and finally, winning in Columbus. I take Michigan because the way Ohio State played with Maryland, it did not sound confident. Like Tailua Tagovailoa literally, dominated. So give me the Michigan Wolverines.
I agree. I am gonna go with Michigan. Because here's the thing: Ohio State. I don't know if they're tough enough.
Yeah, I don't know if they're tough enough.
I think Michigan's going to push them around. I think they're going to run the ball way better. And here's the thing: last year, C.J. Stroud did not play well against Michigan. His receivers made some unbelievable plays to keep them in that game. And this game's going to be tight. I think it's going to be a classic type game. But I think Ohio State or Michigan is going to get it done at Ohio State. Do you see any major upsets here? I think you picked A&M over LSU, so I guess that'd be the major one.
Yeah, that would be my major one.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I think I'll say this for TCU, and just their game last week. I've never seen a team execute what they did at the end of the Baylor game, like running the ball, running your field goal team out to win it like that. I thought they were going to choke doing that. So, but hey, congrats to them. They managed to pull it off. But we'll see where we're at this time next week. Of course, it's Thanksgiving weekend. This is the best weekend of college football every single year. And a lot of narratives will be made or broken after this weekend. A lot of coaches are on the line. Huge weekend for, I think, Mike Leach, for Josh Heupel, for Lane Kiffin, for insert name coach here. A huge
even for Nick Saban. Even for Nick Saban. I mean, imagine losing to another rival. I know the game. I know the game.
So
I mean, they're gonna be in Tuscaloosa, but still, like, and Auburn. I mean, imagine, Alabama losing to Auburn in Tuscaloosa, and Auburn's gonna make it to a bowl game despite all the chaotic season they had.
Yeah, and I mean, for Cadillac Williams, the accomplishment that would be absolutely unbelievable. I don't think Auburn could play with them for a little bit. Here's the thing about Alabama. You could tell, like, at the Ole Miss game, that team was still bought in, and that's a sign of an all-time coach in Nick Saban. That team could have started to fall apart after LSU. They did not, and they fought like hell to get out of there with a win. So,
yeah, that's it.
They're going to win that game, and they're going to go to a New Year's Six game. And yes, it's not the season Bama fans want because they want to be in the playoffs every year. But I think for Bama fans, just have to remember that, you were 2 plays away from being undefeated. So, just sometimes stuff happens, and you're going to be so talented that you'll be probably right back there next year. So really fast, because wow, we've been here for a while. Just really quickly, I just want to bring this point up on the side. The Lady Vols are 2-4. Gus, worst start in program history since 1981. They lost today to Gonzaga. They lost yesterday to UCLA. They've dropped games to Indiana, Ohio State. I don't know if you've seen any of their games. I really haven't seen a ton. I watched the fourth quarter of Gonzaga today. The defense is horrible for the Lady Vols. Like, I watched their game against Indiana. They could not defend.
Yeah, I mean, it's another pressure. And then if Kelly Harper fails, then we start to wondering if the Lady Vols should hire a coach outside of Pat Summitt, legacy system. Because first we got Holly Warlick, which, was under Pat Summitt, was the successor. Then by the end of her tenure, the team played really badly. Then we got Kelly Harper, who had success on coaching before getting to the Lady Vols. But do you think if Kelly Harper fails, then the Lady Vols might go outside of a Pat Summitt hire?
I think with Danny White, I think he would consider it. I think Danny White would do that. So it's, and here's the thing: I want Kelly Harper to succeed. And And they still have a lot of time. They've got a lot of talent, and I think they will get it together. And I think they're going to do really well in SEC play. But man, this is a tough start right now for the Lady Vols. I did not see it for a top 5 team preseason. I did not see them starting out 2-4. So
I mean, they lost a lot of
work.
talent. They lost Ray Burrell. I mean, she was a major factor in this team.
Oh, of course, but they brought in like Rakea Jackson, for example. If you look at their roster, it's one of the 5 or 10 most talented rosters in the entire country. And it's just not working right now for them. So hopefully they can get things figured out there on the summit. Of course, the men's team, they play in the Battle for Atlantis starting on Wednesday against Butler. They could play teams like Kansas, Dayton throughout the week there. I think this is huge for Rick Barnes and company because, they had a horrible game against Colorado, but I think they are way better than that. And I just have a feeling they're going to come out and they're going to play way better this week. So hopefully the men's team will kind of assuage some of my concerns after last week's loss to Colorado. All right, but let's wrap up the things here with our NFL picks. Just a quick update, minute to go in the first half. San Francisco leads Arizona 14-10. San Francisco actually is almost in field goal range. They're in field goal range. They're in the red zone. And Jawan Jennings almost just caught a touchdown, but unfortunately, I was a little beyond his reach. But 14-10, San Francisco over Arizona. But how did we do this week in our picks?
I got the win. If we both picked the 49ers, so I put as a win for both. So I got 11-9 because you picked the Browns over the Bills. And then also another huge game I think was I picked the Raiders over the Broncos, and I picked the Raiders, you picked the Broncos, and the Raiders got the overtime win. I mean, and then I think on top of that, I was courageous enough to pick the Cowboys, and you picked the Vikings.
I should have trusted my instincts long term about the Vikings. What did I tell you? Kirk Cousins in big moments. I mean, granted, they had a huge win in Buffalo, so I'm like, okay, maybe this is not the Kirk Cousins of old. But, that it reared its ugly head. And is this the year the Dallas Cowboys can go to the Super Bowl? Is this the year that they're breaking that curse?
Yeah. So let's start with them. Actually, I know they don't play the opening of the Thanksgiving, but they play the second game of Thanksgiving in AT&T Stadium. First of all, it's a great atmosphere. I was lucky enough to go in 2018 to a Dallas Cowboys Thanksgiving game. It's amazing. It's an amazing atmosphere. And there was a down year for the Dallas Cowboys, and the fans show up, and it's a great atmosphere. And they're gonna host the 7-3 New York Giants. So this game's gonna have a huge implications in terms of wild card spot. Let's just because the division, I think we can. I think the Philadelphia Eagles kind of pull ahead. I think they're gonna be the division winners. But in terms of playoff and the wild card, this game is huge.
I'll say this though. I mean, the Eagles, they haven't looked sharp. I mean, they barely survived Indianapolis on Sunday. So I don't know. I don't think the NFC East is quite done yet. Whoever wins this game is going to have a chance. And I think it's going to be Dallas. The Giants looked horrible yesterday. I mean, against Detroit Lions. I mean, it's not that they gave up 31 points because the Lions have had a pretty good offense all year. Offensively for the Giants. I mean, Detroit has the worst defense in the entire league, and they did not play well on that side of the ball yesterday. That's what would concern me about the Giants, because now you're about to play Dallas, who has perhaps the best defense in the entire league. We saw what they just did to Minnesota. That's heavily concerning if you're the Giants. And I'll say this, the Cowboys, I think, have finally learned that Tony Pollard is your best weapon, your best running back. And I hope they keep it that way. As long as they keep it like that, their offense is going to be rolling. Where they could get in trouble is if they bring Ezekiel back completely to RB1 status. Tony Pollard is the guy. Give him the ball. As long as you do that, Dallas will win.
So I got the Cowboys too. I think they're gonna win at home. This is a huge game in terms of Thanksgiving games, they always look stronger. So give me the Cowboys too. So now back to the opening game of this Thanksgiving. It's going to be the tradition of beating down the Lions, because the Bills, they play in Detroit and they beat the Cleveland Browns there. And it was funny because they had to play in Detroit because of a huge snowstorm down in Buffalo.
Yeah,
So
80 inches of snow at the Bill Stadium.
so now they got the win at Lions Stadium on Sunday. Do you think they can do it again and probably with a weaker opponent?
I think they will get the win, but I don't think it's going to be a beatdown, though. I think it's going to be a really solid game. The Lions, I think, are going to be quite entertaining to watch in this game. But, yeah, I think the Bills are just going to have too much talent. You remember a couple of years ago, the Bills dominated the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. And that to me really was the, oh, wow, the Bills are for real moment. Was when they dominated Dallas on Thanksgiving. And I could see the same thing for Buffalo on Thursday. So I like Buffalo here.
Yeah, I like Buffalo too. I know we're gonna pick the same teams with both games, but I like Buffalo too. I think Buffalo got lucky with that streak of weak NFC North teams, and they're gonna run the table. So give me the Bills as well. And to end it up, the Thursday night game is the 8-2 Minnesota Vikings and the 6-4 New England Patriots. The Minnesota is only favored by a field goal with all the swag and all good their season's been compared to how average this do you think it's a huge factor? It's a Thursday night game. It's a big game, and they're coming off a really bad loss at home. I don't know. I think I got the Patriots.
See, I'm torn because the Patriots, I mean, their offense was a no-show basically against the Jets, and they won on an incredible punt return for a touchdown against the New York Jets. Just an insane way to win a football game. I don't trust Mac Jones, though. Not that I trust Kirk Cousins in prime time either. But I think here in this spot, I think the Vikings, they're going to have a point to prove this week after getting embarrassed. So I'm going to take Minnesota. I think they'll find a way to win.
Let's see if they're gonna let you down again, or they're gonna be like, okay, we can win.
If they
big games.
lose, I'm picking against them the rest of the year.
Sounds fair. So let's go to the Sunday matchups. The 3-7 Cleveland Browns against the 5-5 Buccaneers. It's getting closer to the Deshaun Watson's debut. Do you think the Browns are gonna look better as we're getting closer to the Deshaun Watson debut day?
Not this week. Well, I mean, they could definitely beat the Bucs. The Bucs have been inconsistent all year. So I mean, I think it'll be an interesting game at least. But the Bucs are coming off of a bye week, and at this point, the Browns are 3-7. I think they know they're in the lame duck period waiting on Deshaun Watson. I like Tampa here. I think this is the time of year normally where Tom Brady gets his team going to the point where they find ways to win football games later on in the season. Because when you get to Thanksgiving, now you're in playoff chase mode, and the Bucs, they're in control of the NFC South, and they got to find a way to get stuff going so they can be in a position to go on a run in January.
Yeah, I got the Bucs, Joe. I mean, you said it right. If Tom Brady sacrificed a lot, and he did, to keep playing football, he wants to prove he's still a competitive team and still makes at least the playoffs. So give me the Bucs as well. So next game is the 7-3 Tennessee Titans hosting the 6-4 Cincinnati Bengals. I know for Titans fans,
How about the Titans?
how this game's gonna feel? Is this a revenge game or not?
Yes, it is a revenge game. I mean, we had a number 1 seed last year. It was on our home turf, And after that game, look at all we lost after that game. That probably was our best chance at the Super Bowl. And Cincinnati came in and they beat us, and they took that away from us. So, yeah, I want to beat the Bengals. But just briefly, if I can, that game at Lambeau was by far the best performance the Titans had all year. I mean, the way they got after Aaron Rodgers, the way they harassed that offense, and then our offense going up and down the field. Ryan Tannehill had his first truly great game of the season. Treylon Burks finally is living up to that first-round draft pick. Of course, he's been hurt. But, I mean, if he has more performances like that, that will help us get over the whole A.J. Brown situation. We still obviously need more on that position, and we need to draft, I think, several receivers in this upcoming draft class to really help with that. But it's not here's the thing. I'm starting to get more and more confident with this team because I really haven't thought they were that good of a team up until now. I mean, obviously a great defense, but I just wasn't trusting this offense. Was not trusting this offense. Maybe we can now. Obviously, unfortunately, Todd Downing made a very stupid decision to drink and drive. And whatever comes of that is whatever he gets, right? Like if he gets fired, he deserves that because that's drinking and driving is one of the worst things that you can do. Like you never do that. So whatever that situation comes out with, whatever the NFL decides, they're just gonna have to take the punishment. So I'm curious to see if that affects the Titans offense moving forward. Of course, I really have not been a big fan of Todd Downing all season. But now to have the offense rolling and now to have this situation is not great. Now, in terms of this game, the Bengals have been on a roll recently. Like their offense is on fire. I know Jamar Chase went down, but that has not slowed down Joe Burrow. If anything, he may have gotten better. And of course, we unfortunately have this off the field distraction right now with the Titans. Don't know how that's going to affect the offense. The Bengals defense hasn't been great. But I don't know. This game could go either way. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to pick Cincinnati just because I don't know how our offensive situation is going to play out. But I think this thing could go either way.
You know what's going to be my pick in those situations. You just know.
You're going to pick the Tennessee Titans, aren't you?
Of course I am.
You picked against them last week, and I actually picked them, and we won. So
yeah, so I need to, so I pick them when I don't pick them when they're not the favorite. I don't pick them when they're the favorites, and I pick them when they are, not the favorites because Cincinnati is favored by 1.5. So give me the Titans. Give me.
I think it's going to be a phenomenal game,
though. Next one is the 7-3 and division leader Miami Dolphins versus the dumpster fire of 1-8-1 by the
5 yards at half. Did you see that? 5 yards at halftime for the Houston Texans. They were averaging 0.8 inches but they were averaging the length of your finger per play. And I'm glad that wasn't one finger over. But anyway, yeah, Miami rolls. The Houston Texans are not going to win another game all year. We might as well just skip Texas again the rest of the year and just be like, yeah, we're picking whoever plays the Texans because this might be the worst NFL offense of all time. And I don't know why they brought back Lovie Smith to the NFL, but that offense is like 15 years out of date. The quarterback who is not starter material.
Do you know what's crazy? The Texans has not the worst point of differentials. That's
really?
Still crazy to me. That's not crazy to me. And the team that has the worst point differentials is the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is the next game. I think I don't know. They're not on the bye. They play this week, but the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, they how can the Houston Texans has not the worst point differentials.
Yeah, well, they got off to a decent start, and I think that's what helped them because they beat Jacksonville, they tied with Indianapolis, so
Yeah, that's a good point. So let's we both agree on the offense. Let's move on because I think the next one's going to be tougher than the record shows because the 6-4 New York Jets plays the 3-8 Chicago Bears. I think the Jets win it, but it's going to be by 3 points. I think.
Yeah, because the Bears cannot win any games, but they don't get blown out. They lose every game by 3 points or less. They just keep on losing close games. Justin Fields goes out there, puts on a show, but they lose.
I mean, the last 3 games was 3 points, 1 point, 3 points.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, if you're Chicago, do you begin to give up?
But here's the thing. Justin Fields is in day-to-day with an injured shoulder. So might have problem having Justin Fields out.
If he's out, then the Jets roll. I mean, I know their offense wasn't very good, and Zach Wilson is struggling. In fact, if you compare, I saw this earlier. I forgot where I saw it. If you compare Zach Wilson's stats for 20 games versus Jamarcus Russell's stats for 20 games, they're virtually identical, which would be very concerning to me.
So you pick the Jets either way?
I am picking the Jets here, but long-term, big question marks about Zach Wilson. Because they were
next one is the 6-5 Washington Commanders coming off a big win over the Philadelphia Eagles, facing the 5-4 Atlanta Falcons. I mean, the Commanders, they have won 5 out of the 6 games, and even the Minnesota loss was by 3 points. So I guess Ron Rivera is really turning things around. And how about Taylor Heineke?
I'll help Taylor Heineke.
It's Taylor Heineke fever now. It's like when we had the Linsanity. Now it's Taylor Heineke fever.
Yeah. And you know what? I think they're going to win again. I really do. Here's the thing. Washington's defense is super good. And that's really helping them out. Look what they did to the Philadelphia last week. And, of course, this week, I know Houston's offense stinks. But holding any NFL offense to 5.5 yards is a major accomplishment that deserves to be applauded. And what Washington did in that half was unbelievable. And the thing with the Falcons is, yes, they have been way better than I thought they would be this year. They still have a chance at their division. But I think here right now, I think the Washington is just playing better fundamental football than Atlanta is. And I think that's going to get them to win.
I mean, the Washington Commanders literally is fighting. They need to win in order to get into the division, to fight for the wild card spot. I feel like, I don't know how they're literally tied with, one win over San Francisco. But the problem, they have one more loss than the 49ers. So this is a huge game for the Commanders if they want to make the wild card. And the Falcons, too. The Falcons needs to win. And, it's crazy because Washington is number 8 and the Falcons are number 9 in the wild card fight. So, literally is a direct game. And I'm picking the Falcons.
I mean, that game could go either way, but I'm sticking with the Commanders.
So, next one called the Disappointment Bowl. The 3-8 Carolina Panthers versus the 3-7 Denver Broncos. Oh boy, Baker Mayfield versus
Russell
Wilson. I mean,
2 years ago would have been a great matchup, but
yeah,
I don't know, man.
I'm picking a tie. I'm being bold. I pick up a tie.
This game deserves a tie, doesn't it?
It truly deserves a tie.
I mean, the game was so bad for Denver on Saturday or Sunday that literally they were booing every time that Melvin Gordon went out on the field because I think he had he had multiple fumbles, and he's been cut by the Broncos.
I mean, Nathaniel Hackett lost to the coach that lost to the team that had a beginner's coach. If you think about it, Josh McDaniel beat Nathaniel Hackett, but lost to Jeff Saturday.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I mean, Nathaniel Hackett, I don't know how he's still coaching right now. Because what he has underachieved more than virtually every other coach. Him and Josh McDaniels both. I know McDaniels just won a game, but both of them should not be in their jobs next year. What they have done with their rosters has been just absolute tragedy.
Oh, yeah, that game should have ended up with a tie. I mean, it was overtime because it had to go, but Jesus, that was horrible.
The only player that was trying was Devontae Adams, which I'm glad of because Devontae Adams is on my fantasy team. But man, brutal. That I'm going to go Carolina, and for this reason alone, Carolina actually played a really solid defensive game last week against Baltimore, or yesterday against Baltimore. So you can tell that I feel like that at least they have a lot of effort. I think Denver is getting close to giving up on this season. And when you're in these toilet bowl games, you have to think about what team would have the more effort here. And I think Carolina's going to have more effort here. So I'm going to go Carolina.
And it's funny, it's almost like the Tank Bowl because, I mean, I know Broncos is ahead of the Steelers and the Texans and the Bears. So, but yeah, that's a good point. Like, still the bottom bowl. But next one is the last game of the 3 p.m. clock hour East time on Sunday. The 3-7 Jacksonville Jaguars versus the 7-3 Baltimore Ravens. I mean, I'm taking Baltimore. Jaguars. I thought they would at least be a competitive team. I thought they would be at least like 4-6 or even 5-5, but they still a long way to be a competitive team.
Yeah, I don't know. Is Trevor Lawrence trending towards being a bust or not? Or does he still need more time?
Or maybe he needs a newer team. Do you think he's going to stay in Jacksonville or trying to find a different team so he can at least show a talent elsewhere? That's the biggest question.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely disappointing though so far.
Yeah.
And the Ravens, I feel like now at this point of the season, are just finding ways to win some football games, which is what you need to do this time of year. I like Baltimore to win.
So next one is a division AFC West division game between the 5-5 Los Angeles Chargers and the 4-6 Cardinals. I know they're currently playing right now in Estadio Azteca. I feel like this game, the Chargers, is a must-win game for the Chargers because they are on the fight to make they're on the hunt for the wild card. They're literally sitting outside of the Jets and the Bengals, so they need to win this game. Give me the Chargers.
Yeah, last night that was such a disappointing loss, a deflating loss for Los Angeles. They had to find a way to win that game. They just couldn't. They can't stop Travis Kelce. They have no answer for Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce whatsoever. Even when Justin Herbert led them on a game-winning drive, the drive before, they couldn't stop Mahomes. The Cardinals are probably not going to have Kyler Murray back. They are playing the 49ers pretty well. They're only down 17-10. I am going to go Chargers here, though, but I'm tempted to pick against them.
So still keeping the Chargers?
You know what? Make this my upset special. I'm going Arizona. Even without Kyler Murray, which it might be a bad idea, but man, those Chargers, they just don't know how to win. They just don't know how to win.
So next one is the 6-4 Seattle Seahawks versus the 3-7 Las Vegas Raiders. I think the Seahawks going to take this one. Give me the Hawks.
I agree.
So, but this game is, I feel like, is I think it's gonna be. I mean, if it was last year, this game would have been huge. The Los Angeles Rams going to Kansas City to face the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm taking the Rams. They're gonna be crazy. I feel like Sean McVay at least needs to win one big game to at least don't be a total disappointment season.
I mean, they don't have Cooper Kupp. They're probably not going to have Matthew Stafford. I don't see it. I think the Chiefs are going to roll here. I don't think it's going to be close. I just don't see it. You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Oh, sorry, it's just a little cough. And to finish up the 6 p.m. Games is the 5-4 San Francisco 49ers versus the 4-7 New Orleans Saints. I'm picking the Saints.
I'm going to go Niners. I think that the Niners, they're just going to be a bit more fundamental. I think it's going to be a pretty good competitive game. I like the Niners, though.
Last but not least, Sunday Night Football. 9-1. It's the Sunday Night Football. Yeah, Sunday Night Football. It's the 9-1 Philadelphia Eagles hosting the 4-7 Packers. I mean, how disappointing is the Packers? Like,
yeah, very. Last week's loss, I think ended their season basically. They could not take a loss there, but they did. The Eagles, the Eagles are not playing great right now, but I think they'll get back on track here. I think they're going to win the game.
Yes, I'm picking the Eagles as well. I don't see Green Bay winning another. Maybe I don't see Green Bay winning another big profile game. That's what I meant to say.
Is it? I think Aaron Rodgers has done at Green Bay.
Oh yeah, I think Green Bay really needs to find a trade for him. But the thing is, what team wants to pick his massive contract? What team?
Yeah, and then not just the contract, but all the problems that come with him, all the on-field stuff. I mean, yeah, he's a great talent, but I don't know if I'd want that in my locker room. It's gonna be.
Green Bay shot him the foot when they gave Aaron Rodgers this huge contract. It literally trapped Green Bay to make any trade or any decision to kind of move forward. I think Green Bay is going to be trapped for maybe 1 or 2, even 3 years.
Yep.
And last but not least, I know we're almost down to 3 hours, but so much to talk. Monday Night Football is the game.
Why? Why is this Monday Night Football?
Why?
This is after a certain point in the season. They have to be able to flex some of these games out. I understand that you set these games on certain days, but isn't there not a point a month ago where it's okay, yeah, Steelers Colts not going to be a good game. Couldn't we kick? I don't know, the Bengals and Titans to Monday night?
Yeah, I think there will be a great Monday night game, Bengals and Titans. Way better than Colts.
That was a playoff game last year. Why was this picked and not Bengals Titans? That makes no sense. I'm not just picking on them because it's Colts, but these are two teams with losing records.
Yes, I mean, but sadly, I think the Cinderella story of just Saturday ends, on a sour home loss. I think I'm giving the Steelers, but NFL is so flexible in so many things, on rules, on on league, on so many things. Why they can't be flexible on prime times games? Like 2 weeks ago, maybe the Colts and the Steelers are not going to be appealing. They're having a bad season. I don't know. Let's change that to a more appealing game. But no, they kept this terrible Monday Night Football game.
Yeah. Real done here. Honestly, I'm going to pick the Colts. I think Jeff Saturday's story goes for one more week. He managed to get a win last week. I almost beat the top team in the league. Lose that by a point. I just think the Colts are playing way better. I think they have a better roster right now. Give me Indy.
And with that, is there any? I don't. Yeah. I mean, the NBA and NFL is happening, but not much line stories.
I mean, MLB off season's going on, but we'll have more time to talk about that. I know MVP awards came out for MVP. I totally forgot what even the rest of MLB awards even look like, because that came out last week.
I know Aaron Judge won the AL one.
And then it was what was it? Paul Goldschmidt that won the NL MVP. So Goldschmidt and Judge are your MVPs. I can't really argue with that. So yeah,
But
I think that's going to do it on a nearly 3 hour. We're turning into Joe Rogan of the Brazilian and American sports here.
yeah, I mean, we had so much to talk about. That's what happens when you put World Cup, NFL, and college football all packed on late November, early December. That's what happens on our podcast.
Yeah, blame Sepp Battler for taking that bribe from guitar because we could have used this in June. But we will do what we do. It's great content. I hope y'all, if you have stuck around this long to listen to us blabber on about sports, you, sirs, are the real MVP. There's no secret for sticking around this long, but hey, you have listened to the best podcast about American and Brazilian sports. For Gus Tomazeli down in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, I'm Nicholas Hill, Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States. Shout out once again to Jason Wyrick for joining us today. And enjoy and also to all of our American friends, enjoy your Thanksgiving. Hopefully, you all have great meals. The turkeys, don't burn your house down if you're going to smoke it. Smoke that outside. Don't
burn your cakes down. Do you saw that meme with the lady that burned a cake?
I did not see that. I'll have to look at it. Also, Black Friday. Well, if you still go out for Black Friday and just don't stay in like a normal person and do Cyber Monday, be safe out there as well. Anyway, enjoy your holiday week. We'll see you next week. Go USA, go Vols, go Titans.
And go Brazil on Thursday because it's gonna be a holiday on Thursday because Brazil playing, the country stops.
Oh, of course. Thanksgiving everywhere.
And we won't stop until we get y'all, till we get